avenues and advantages, for someone to grow as a person. Again, Owensboro, that was a great place to grow up, but basically it was an agricultural community, and it just didn't have a lot of the cultural and other advantages that I think that Charlottesville had.
No fraternities in Owensboro, probably, right?
Well, Kentucky Wesleyan had the Sigma News. The Sigma News were big in KWC.
Yep.
Your dad was a college coach? Yes. How did he shape your athletic career, and how did he influence you as a basketball coach?
Well, I learned the game from him. I was very fortunate through my entire career to play for what I consider just outstanding coaches. My coach in high school, Wayne Chapman, played Division I basketball, played in the ABA, was very successful as a high school coach, and eventually coached at Kentucky Wesleyan after my father left and won a national championship. Obviously, my experience with Coach Holland at UVA, I was very, very fortunate to have great coaches throughout my career, but I learned the game from my father. And I think I got my approach, valuing blue collar values, and the toughness that he instilled in me and my brother. I think that was really the big thing. I was the kid that followed Dad to practice every day that I could. And lots of kids do that, but I was the one sitting on the side watching and paying attention, as opposed to running around trying to shoot baskets at one of the side baskets. So I was always very, very intrigued by the game. I fell in love with the game more so than coaching. Coaching became something that I pursued because I couldn't play the game anymore. But I fell in love with the game very, very early on.
Did you have any early influences, player-wise? Like when I came up, obviously I was playing just like Michael Jordan, things like that. But who were you? Who are your guys?
Well, they're guys that none of you would recognize their names because they played at Kentucky Wesleyan.
That's what
for my dad. A guy named Dallas Thornton, who was the Division II All-American. Mike Williams, George Tinsley. They had great success, and you got to remember, I think, back in those times, back in the 70s when I was growing up, and my dad was an assistant and then became the head coach at Wesleyan. This was before, quite honestly, college basketball had been integrated. And so the African-American players on my dad's team, once things became more integrated, were the guys that went on and won national championships and attended the University of Louisville. My dad, recruited Louisville Male High School, which is, people would remember, Darrell Griffith and Bobby Turner, Wesley Cox, those guys, I believe all attended Louisville Male High School. Prior to the integration, those guys, certainly a lot of them, some of them were coming to Kentucky Wesleyan. So Division II basketball back then was a much higher level and probably would be considered, mid-majors, the Kentucky Wesleyans, the Tennessee States, the Kentucky States, there were so many teams at the Division II level back then that produced NBA players. And so those were the players that I identified with and really watched. And I can't say emulated, but certainly those were the ones that I paid attention to.
So was there any inkling or following of Virginia or ACC basketball at that time for you at that age?
No, I knew nothing about Virginia and ACC basketball. To me, growing up in the Midwest with the SEC and the Big Ten was considered soft. I mean, that was the reputation of the ACC nationally, and really, what most of us knew about the ACC was North Carolina in the Four Corners. So that was not something that was followed very closely in the Midwest and specifically in the state of Kentucky.
Were you a big Kentucky fan? Cats? I was. I lived in Georgetown for a while.
No. Well, actually, I was born in Georgetown, or lived in Georgetown. So my father went to Georgetown College. But no, I wasn't a Kentucky fan. And in fact, I rooted against Kentucky as hard as I possibly could. And in fact, an interesting story, not to go off on a tangent, when I was I think I had just become maybe the head coach at Virginia. Maybe I was still an assistant coach. I'm not sure. Dave Odom and I got a ride with Rick Pitino, who was the coach at Kentucky, and his assistant at the time, Ralph Willard, who eventually went on and coached at Seton Hall and Holy Cross. So Ralph was driving, Pitino was in the passenger seat up front, and Dave and I were in the back. And we were driving from the Pittsburgh airport to Five-Star Camp. And Pitino just kind of looks over his shoulder and said, "Jeff, why did you not go to Kentucky? I know you're from Owensboro." And I looked at Dave Odom, and he looked at me like, "Don't say it, don't say it." But I couldn't resist, and I said, "I've always hated the University of Kentucky." So needless to say, that didn't go over really, really well. But it's funny how things happen. Once Rick went there, and I think changed some of the things that had gone on before that had caused me to not particularly care for UK basketball. And then Tubby Smith coming in after, and now with Cal. I know all those guys. They're great guys, and I don't any longer harbor any animosity towards UK, but I will say one other. It was very rewarding and fun for me. I was back home in Owensboro during the summer, and when Ralph Sampson chose and announced he was coming to Virginia, and he picked us over UK. That was a fun day to rub it in to my friends and the people in Owensboro that were big UK fans.
They're kind of brainwashed, the Kentucky fans. I remember I was a Kyle Macy fan.
Yeah, I grew up obviously rooting for my dad's teams, but I rooted. I was a University of Louisville guy. I mean, I grew up watching them, and a big part of it, quite honestly, was so many of those players I referred to earlier on my dad's teams were from Louisville, that really was, I think, my connection there.
Did Louisville recruit you?
They did. They recruited me. I wasn't their top choice. No, they had Jerry Eves, who eventually went there and had a great career. And Vince Taylor, who went to Duke. Those were the top two, and I would have been probably the third player in the state of Kentucky that year. But that worked out well for me. But Jerry signed there, obviously, and had a great career, and that opened the door for me to be recruited by Virginia.
What was your recruitment process like?
Unusual. You have to remember back then you didn't have the media involvement in recruiting, and while there were some scouting services, they didn't exist like they do now. So players like myself, oftentimes could go unnoticed outside of my region, and initially I think that's what happened. When things really kind of opened up was when my team played against Jerry Eves' team in a Christmas tournament, and I outplayed him, and our team beat them, and we made it through our regular season undefeated. And the coach at Louisville Ballard, Jerry Eves' team, called the guy who the year before, sorry if I'm rambling here, but there is a point, The year before, Richard Schmidt had been the coach at Ballard. Terry Holland hired Richard Schmidt and brought him as an assistant coach to UVA, along with Lee Raker, Terry Gates, and Jeff Lamp. So when I had outplayed Jerry and our team, had the success, Don Salyers, the new coach at Louisville Ballard, called up Richard Schmidt and said, "Look, you guys should recruit this kid Jones. He's pretty good." And so that was kind of my first, I guess, national notice that I received. And then after Virginia got involved, quite a few others, including North Carolina, and ultimately my decision came down to Virginia and North Carolina, even though neither of them, had ever as much as written me a note or a letter prior to probably around Christmas. My recruitment was further complicated by the fact that in October of my senior year, my father became ill. They didn't know what it was, and basically went from October until March in various hospitals. He spent time in the Owensboro Hospital. He went down to Nashville, spent a month or so there, and then eventually went up to and thankfully was cured up at the Mayo Clinic. So the recruiting was really put on hold because my dad was away, my mom was staying with him, and my brother and sister and I were all kind of staying with friends and relatives during that year. So it was not your your normal recruiting process for sure.
Did you win the state, Kentucky, or no? Did you win the?
No, that year, my senior year, we went undefeated during the regular season, 35-0, and then in Kentucky, they have the Sweet 16. There's 16 regions, and all 16 go regardless of the size or anything, and it's a random bracket. So the number 1 and the number 2 teams in the state, my team, Owensboro Apollo, played Shelby County, who had Charles Hurt, who ended up going to Kentucky. We played in the first round, which is absolutely crazy, and they beat us in a close game after we had beaten them in a Christmas tournament in a very close game as well. So, no, the answer to your question is we never did win a state championship.
I think Charles Hurt was 25 that year as well.
Well, I don't know how old he was.
He was a grown man.
Dude was a man. I mean, he looked like Yuri Barnes when he was in high school.
Exactly.
When Charles was in high school.
Right. That's funny.
So while your parents weren't around a lot your senior year, who was helping to guide you and helping you make your decisions?
Well, as I said, the recruiting was on hold. I didn't have any contact with any coaches during that time. But my high school coach, Wayne Chapman, who is Rex Chapman's father. That's
right. I was going to ask you that.
And so obviously Coach Chapman, helped me out a lot. But there were other people. A guy named Wayman Morris, who was the vice principal at the high school, was great. Billy Ray Cartwright, who's was my 8th grade math teacher. I still hear from him pretty much every day. He sends bad jokes. He emails bad jokes. But those people. That's the thing about being in a community, like Owensboro. There were a lot of really special people that helped Doug and Kelly and I kind of get through all that. But my recruiting, that was put on hold. Another, I don't know if it's interesting or not, but different story. I was considering Vanderbilt, but I think the guy was Hobbs maybe, and there were some issues down there. So Vanderbilt probably would have been my top choice, at least before visits. I mentioned Virginia and North Carolina. The job at Western Kentucky opened up, and Gene Cady was hired. And I was very Western Kentucky was not far, maybe an hour from my home. I knew people at Western Kentucky, had a lot of friends. I would have very seriously considered Western Kentucky, but that meeting with Gene Cady, he spent more time talking about. Essentially, he was saying he wasn't going to just hire Wayne Chapman. That was the thought, I guess, that somehow or another, Coach Chapman was trying to get a job. That Western Kentucky was his alma mater. That hadn't even crossed my mind. That would have been great had it happened, but that meeting did not go well, and so Western Kentucky was. I mean, that they could have beaten North Carolina and Virginia for a player, but after that meeting, that wasn't going to happen.
So you were known as a prolific passer. Was that the biggest strength of your game?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In high school, I barely averaged double figures, and I could score if I wanted to, but that was just really something that it's not that it didn't appeal to me. It's just that wasn't my focus. And I had some very good teammates at the high school level. In fact, virtually my entire team, my senior year, either that year or in subsequent years, went on and played collegiately, like all 13 guys, something like that. So we had some really good players, and I didn't average barely double figures, and they may have fudged those numbers just to make sure that I averaged 11 points. I'm not sure.
And what did you think? Like 16 assists a game type thing?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we scored a lot of points. Yep. We scored a lot of points.
What did you think you needed to work on most going into your first year at UVA?
I think probably getting stronger, trying to become more athletic. Not that anyone would know it looking at me now, but back then I was 6'4", 180. And people just didn't lift weights back then. And in order for me to really, I think, be successful against the athletes that you face in the ACC, I was never going to be as quick or as fast as those guys. So the work that we did at Virginia in the weight room, we were one of the very, very, very first programs to ever really embrace the whole idea of weightlifting. I had some injuries that limited what I could do. I tore the ligaments in my thumb and broke a finger and couldn't grasp a bar, and then I injured my knee. So, I wasn't able to attack the weightlifting exactly the way I wanted, but still what we did kind of stood apart from other collegiate programs at that time.
Mm-hmm. You get to UVA your first year. Is it love at first sight? Is it, it's okay, I think I can do this? Or were you having second thoughts?
How about back to the visit? I want to hear about his visit.
You want me to say I can't remember my visit, right?
No, that's the love at first sight.
Not the case. Of my visits to colleges, the Virginia visit was absolutely the worst.
Same.
Yours too?
Yeah, I was telling him I was drinking wine coolers at Arkansas State, and I went to a movie with Matt Blunden at Virginia. You tell me what's better.
My visit to Virginia, it was interesting, and I visited, and I can't remember if Virginia was first or second, but I visited, and I figured out that they kind of mislabeled me or misjudged me a little bit. They actually brought me in with a guy who was a Mormon, Devin Durant, and the closest we got to any alcohol or parties or anything, we walked by down in Mad Bowl. Some of the fraternities were having some event, and there was a beer chugging event, and we saw and hopefully he doesn't mind me saying this, but we saw Terry Gates chugging beers and then going to the back of the line and throwing up. And and here I was thinking, wow, that looks like fun. And I think that really turned Devin Durant off. So, but anyway, I did really enjoy my relationship and with the guys and the people that I met, and ultimately I knew Virginia was the place for me. The North Carolina visit, I won't go into detail. The North Carolina visit was great.
Who was your host at Carolina?
I had a couple of them. Mike O'Corin was the main guy. A guy named Rich Yoniker. And I'll just say this: it probably about 2 or 3 in the morning. O'Corin and Yoniker, myself, and about 15 other people were all loaded into Yoniker's convertible Cadillac, and pulled over. The university police there just told them to be careful. So I just that's just a little a little excerpt of what went on there.
I get it.
So how well did you know like the guys from Kentucky, Lee Raker and that crew before you got there? Did they help you in the recruiting process or?
Well, I didn't know them well. I knew of them. I'd watched them on TV the year before win the state championship, and they were all involved in my recruitment, as was Jeff Lamp's girlfriend at the time, Mary Beth McLucky, and they even had her calling me. So, but I knew of them, and we were we were very close. Once I made the decision, those guys, and in fact, I've been texting with Raker, Lamp, and Gates in the last 2 or 3 days, just
awesome.
about stuff. Just checking in, making sure everybody's doing well during the pandemic.
Right.
I gotta say, when I was at the Maui Invitational, whatever, maybe 10 years ago, and some Kentucky guys came up. I was wearing my Virginia jersey. I was there to see us play, and some Kentucky guys came up and said, Virginia's always been my number 2 favorite team after Kentucky because of Jeff Jones, Lee Raker, Terry, and I thought that was so cool, and that they've always adopted us over the years as the second team to root for outside of Kentucky, which maybe he's just saying that because I was there, but he gave me a bunch of tickets and stuff. He was like, I love Virginia. It was pretty cool. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when I still think that our 81 team probably had more Kentuckians in the starting lineup, certainly that played in the Final Four, than UK has ever had. With Lamp, Raker, myself, and Gates. I can't remember if Gates actually started. I think Othell may have started in his place. But you had 4 guys. I doubt that UK has ever had four guys playing a Final Four from the state of Kentucky.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure not now.
So go back to your initial year at UVA. When you first get to the grounds, are your thoughts like, this is my spot? I love this place. I'm so happy with my choice.
No, definitely not.
Transfer portal.
Thank God there wasn't a transfer portal then.
Yep.
There were parts of it that I liked, but that was kind of a turning point of UVA basketball, because Lamp and Raker had come in, and obviously they were very much basketball focused. I came in and I was basketball focused, but the entire team wasn't kind of in the same place, and that was hard for me. We lost more games that year, and we had an okay year. I mean, we made the NIT, which back then was a bigger accomplishment than it is now. I think we lost maybe 10 or 12 games. That was more games than I'd lost in like the last 3 years, before coming. So that was difficult. And when we lost at Alabama in the second or third round of the NIT, and by the way, during that game, I got matched up, not on a switch or anything. They actually had me trying to guard Reggie King, the guy they called Mule, who was 6'6",
Big
about
legend.
270.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a mismatch.
Had you added your 5 pounds of muscle, so you were at least 185 by then, right?
Yeah. But I, when we left, my mom had come down to that game, and when we lost, it was spring break. So Terry Gates and I rode with my mom back to Kentucky, and I just told her in the car, on the way back, I'm done. I don't know where I'm going. I'm done. I just wanted to be someplace where there was, I guess, more of an emphasis on winning. When I went back, I didn't make any announcements or anything, and I went back, but I actually, things changed for me though that last month and a half or so. Met some new friends, and it certainly didn't hurt that we were involved with Ralph. I can't say that's why, because I made the decision to stay before Ralph actually signed, but I was definitely contemplating leaving, and it was solely because just the emphasis on winning wasn't what I really wanted. But as I said, there were more and more guys coming in that were basketball focused, and obviously the success that we had during that era really kind of illustrated that change of focus.
Was that the culture that Terry Holland was responsible for? Where there wasn't so much focus on winning, or was
no?
That
I think that
and something that he changed?
I think that was the school. I don't. At that point, Virginia was a great school, but Virginia was a kind of thought of as an excellent regional university, and obviously academics, that's always been a big deal, but that stood way up here, and nothing else was even close to it. The term I just used, the basketball centric guys, we were all pretty good students, but we wanted to win. Basketball was the thing that unified us. So I don't think, I think Coach Holland and the staff got credit, or should get credit for bringing in a new breed, so to speak, of basketball players that really were more focused on the basketball aspect than the student athlete. And I don't mean to say that we didn't value education. Every one of these guys that I've mentioned, not only graduated but did pretty well. But it was the basketball and the academics went hand in hand. And when we wanted to win, and we wanted to win at a high level, not at just kind of being there in the ACC and competing.
And like all of us, right? You went to Virginia to play basketball first. The school you had to take care of, and that's all part of it. But you wouldn't.
If it wasn't for basketball, I wouldn't have known anything about the University of Virginia.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was the point. To go there and to play basketball, and while you're there playing basketball, you can get a great degree, great education.
So when did the Ralph hysteria start?
Well, actually, before he got there, but certainly once he committed, it just, it just took off.
How about during your first year? Were there ramblings? Were there discussion about, hey, we might have a chance to get Ralph?
Yeah, later on in the year, yeah. I can still remember all of us, going to University Hall and sitting and watching Ralph play in the state tournament. Back then, the high school state tournament, or at least part of it, was played in University Hall. So, we were all there, and clearly, we were all keeping our fingers crossed that Ralph would come to UVA. But the hysteria was certainly there, and it was a learning experience, I think, for everybody at Virginia, because that kind of thing had never happened for any athlete at UVA. Ralph's presence immediately brought more national recognition, more of a national spotlight on UVA athletics than anything or anyone before that. I think that was a bigger deal, again, for national media, and the attention it gained than in '76 when UVA had won its first ACC championship. I mean, I think that probably pales in comparison to the fact Ralph Sampson is at this school that's, nationally, been at this level of basketball. Sports Illustrated covers and stories, and I think so much that the school and Coach Holland felt very, very strongly the obligation, I think, to protect Ralph. When I say Ralph was shy, I mean I don't know how to put that in strong enough terms. He was very withdrawn. He all the way through his career, he just wanted the guys. He wanted to be a great player, but you step off the court and he never put himself above or acted like he was something special as an individual, which made him such a great teammate. And eventually, slowly but surely, he evolved and he opened up. I think probably, I guess you'd have to ask him, but seeing him now, he probably feels as comfortable in his skin now, which is great to see than ever before, because at a very young age, I mean, there's nowhere for a 7'4" guy to hide.
Right.
You can't be inconspicuous when you're that tall.
Right. And so if he couldn't be that inconspicuous during his visit, the grounds must have been crazy.
I don't really have any recollection of his visit.
You're studying.
I do know that the story that's been told a lot. Tommy Hicks, another teammate who lives out in Salt Lake City now, New York kid, had gone up with some of his fraternity brothers and painted Ralph's house up on top of University Hall, and that's a well-known story, well-known true story, not an urban legend. And that's really all I can recall about Ralph's visit. I'm not sure, what he did or where they took him on his visit.
Do you remember anything about, because he was a shy personality, what do you remember about your first interaction with him?
I don't remember. I do remember one time playing pickup very early on. I don't know if he'd enrolled yet or what the deal was, but we're in University Hall, and Ralph caught the ball, and I'm on weak side help. And I wasn't thinking, and I came over there and started to jump. And then all of a sudden it's like, I do remember that. I tried getting out of there. That would definitely be, they didn't, I don't know if they had the term back then, but that would definitely be getting posterized.
Yeah, maybe that was the original. The original unknown posterization.
I mean, that ball was coming down so hard. Had I not gotten out of there, that would have hurt.
But how was it for you guys as you're starting to emerge as a team leader? I assume your second year and being the point guard. You started your entire first year, I think.
I think all but maybe 4 games, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're the guy, and then you have Ralph Sampson, who might as well be whoever. For you guys being able to to lead him, bring him in to be part of the team, making sure he does what he has to do. Maybe did you have to do that, or did you sense that, or was it just normal? That's what we do when we play.
There was some, and obviously as the point guard, and I was, I came at a good time as a point guard. My first year, I led the ACC in assists, and I had Raker and Lamp on the wings to,
Right.
to throw the ball to. And then the next year, I think I then set the record for assists that was later broken. But uh, you add a guy like Ralph Sampson. So that, I mean, that's a passing point guard's dream to have those guys to throw the ball to.
Right.
I think the only thing with Ralph is that, and this is well documented, he always, and especially early on, he was very willing to drift away from the basket. And I think as the point guard, I tried doing, what I could, and that definitely my junior and senior years. I think I knew the offense so well that I could initiate options that would designate that Ralph be closer to the basket. So, if things happened and he was kind of drifting out away from the basket, I could make a play call or initiate. We didn't really have play calls, but initiate options that required him to stay close to the basket. So, I'm not sure if that's what the question, but that's obviously he did have amazing ability to do things at 7'4",
Right.
but where he was dominant and where people couldn't stop him was in around the basket. I mean, he was so big, he was so athletic, combined with his skill, and once he had spent time in that weight room, even though he looked thin. I mean, he was a very powerful post player.
So by your third year, had your feelings now probably started to change by now because you guys are winning now?
Oh,
right?
no, yes. I mean, my feelings changed at the end of my first year, and through that summer. It was just, during the season, it was disappointing. I think, again, it was new for me. Not winning as much, but by the end of the year, going into the summer, I was committed. There was no more thought of transferring.
Right.
My second year, we ended up winning the NIT, and the regular season was a disappointment. It wasn't terrible, but we didn't make the NCAA tournament. And again, back then, I think there was 36 teams or something like that. There weren't 32 teams, maybe. There weren't a whole lot, but we won the NIT, and probably were playing about as well into the season as anybody.
Yeah.
That gave us some momentum. And then going into the third year, we knew that what we were capable of and fully expect we would, be one of the best teams in the country.
And
That'd be exciting. That was a big deal back then. That was big. So, did you guys go in as number one your third year, preseason?
I don't know if preseason, but I think that year, North Carolina, Virginia, and Oregon State, I believe, were in the top 3 or 4 the entire year. Oregon State had Lester Connor, I think Ray Bloom, and Steve Johnson were their best players. North Carolina had Al Wood, James Worthy, Sam
Jimmy
Perkins, Jim Black, and obviously ourselves. So that really, I think that year, we were very good all the way through the year, as were those other teams. Obviously made the NCAA tournament. Made it to the Final Four, and then Al Wood just went off on us in Philadelphia. We didn't have any answer for Al Wood that year. He averaged, including that 39-point game in the final, he averaged over 30 game. The 2 regular season games we had, Al Wood scored over 30 points in those games as well. So, we just didn't have an answer for him in the finals.
Yeah, you guys were 13-1 in the regular season ACC that year, cruising through the season, regular season as well. Going into the Philly, where the Final Four was held, what was it like?
It was really cool. We had won the regionals down in Atlanta, beating BYU. Had a big scare against Tennessee in the quarterfinals, I guess it was. And we made a change in that Tennessee game. Sorry, I'm throwing out all these kind of bizarre things, but Tennessee had us down, and Tennessee had a player by the name of Dale Ellis, and he was killing us. And we didn't have an answer for him, and we were down. And I ended up getting a lot of credit afterwards, but it was just a suggestion, and during a timeout, I suggested to Coach Holland that, hey, let's try Ralph on Dale Ellis. Not that Ralph could really do a great job of running through the screens. They were running some rover action on the baseline, but just with Ralph's size, would that chase him off of his spot? And it ended up working, and Ellis wasn't nearly as effective, and we did manage to win that game. But after that, we beat BYU with Danny Ainge. It was very exciting going to the Final Four. But if I'm being honest, the Final Four back then, as special as it was, there wasn't the media attention and the hoopla and the hype back then that there is now. So it was a special feeling, but we felt like we still had, we had work to do. Unfortunately, we didn't make it to that championship game after North Carolina beat us. We did in the very last semifinal game against LSU. None of us wanted to play. That was when President Reagan had been shot. There was question about whether either game was going to be played, and we were good not playing that consolation game, but we ended up winning, and that was the last one ever played.
So sounds like you were destined to be a coach with that great suggestion. And Holland even knew it then before he hired you, right?
Did Ralph tell you after the game, never ever suggest that again, JJ? I'm not chasing him again.
Suggestions are a dime a dozen. There were probably suggestions made that we did that didn't work. So that was just a thought that I had that.
By the way, I remember watching that BYU game. That was an unbelievable game. All right, Danny Ainge on that team.
It was very much up and down. Ralph went up one time, and maybe you've seen the picture of the poster. I think it was Ainge coming in on the right side facing for a layup. Ralph was on the other side. Ralph put his left hand on one side of the backboard, and literally as he was facing and above the rim, blocked the shot on the other side of the backboard.
Wow. Yep. I was 11 years old watching that in Georgetown, Kentucky.
There was some question as to whether that's goaltending, if your hand's on the backboard or not, but nobody had ever seen that before.
Exactly. Take away one of the greatest plays in the history of the tournament.
Yeah. Following year, your fourth year now, you guys have another really good regular season and then get upset in the second round. Was it second round against UAB?
I believe that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
First or second round, yeah.
And that's your last game, right?
Yeah. And that team, we weren't as talented as the year before. Obviously, we lost, Lamp, in particular, Lamp and Raker. I thought that my fourth year, and others might disagree, and in fact, some of my teammates that were on both teams disagree. But I thought while we weren't quite as talented, you don't just replace a guy like Lamp. I thought Ralph took a big step up and was an even more dominant player that year for him. His I guess that was his sophomore year, and we were much more versatile. We could play bigger. We could play, and I think the most effective lineup had Ricky Stokes, Othell Wilson and myself, three smaller guards on the court at one time. And, we weren't hurt from a rebounding standpoint or anything because you had Ralph back there. And it's not like any, bigger players could post us up because, they post you up and Ralph would just block the shot. He'd clean things off. But it made us faster, less and better in the open court. We had some great contests, and again, us in North Carolina, 1 and 2 in the country all year long. Basically, North Carolina had the same team minus Al Wood, and they put Michael Jordan, who was a pretty good player at North Carolina. Games that stick out. We lost a tough one down in Chapel Hill, they became the number 1 team. The return game in University Hall, that was as loud as University Hall had ever been. The place was rocking and rolling, and we were on our game. We blew them out. It was 20 or so. Ralph made some ridiculous plays in that one. And then the third game, the grudge match, was the ACC championship game. Probably the best game I ever taken part of in terms of both teams playing at an extremely high level, with obviously a whole lot at stake. And I won't go into it too much, but obviously that was when North Carolina finally got the lead in the second half. Dean Smith called for the 4 corners. Coach Holland chose not to allow us to go out and try to pressure. I'm sure that was had at least in part had something to do with the fact that Othell Wilson was playing on a bum leg. He'd gotten kneed in the quad. A guy named Donnie Epley for Clemson had kneed him in the quad in our first round game, and Othell just wasn't himself. So we end up losing that game. They get the number 1 seed. We instead go down to Birmingham and lose that game. Again, Othell just wasn't himself. I mean, that basically, was the reason for us losing. I mean, Othell was first team all league, that year, and just was a terrific player. That was my last collegiate game. The different things I try to, I remember about that game. One is on the stat sheet. I think they had me down being 9 for 9. And there's no way I could have been 9 for 9 because I missed a shot, but they had me down for that anyway. That was tough. I don't think very fondly of Birmingham. We in our league, we go down and we play UAB pretty much every year, and going down there I can't help but remember that experience.
So Gene Bartow was the coach, I assume, right? Mr. Coach Bartow?
I'm pretty sure that was right. Yeah.
Didn't they have a really good guard? Because I went to a game when I was growing up at UAB.
Yeah.
Really
Chris
good
Giles.
guard.
Chris Giles.
Giles.
Was a forward. Well, he was a forward on that team. Yes, and I can see him. I'm blanking his name. He was a shooter. He didn't have a great game. There was another guard that had a really good game against us.
Surprise you.
Yeah. And they had a good team, but then they ended up losing to Louisville in the next round. Louisville went on, and obviously North Carolina. That was when North Carolina beats Georgetown.
Right.
Jordan hits the jump shot on the left side down in the Superdome.
Yeah. Now going into that tournament, because of Othell's injury, were you guys more cautiously optimistic, or was it definitely we're not underdogs because we're missing a guy, or what were the expectations going in? Were you guys still thinking, all right, this year we're gonna take it all, or was it hesitation.
I don't think, I don't know that any time we took the court with Ralph that we ever thought of ourselves in terms of being an underdog. So, our thought was that we'll
figure it out.
we'll make it work. Yeah. And we had our chances against UAB. It just, just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. 2-point loss, 68-66, I believe. And
Yeah.
that's gotta be a little sad to end your career that way. Sure. But you guys you were part of some really good teams, and the three of us often talk about how hard it is to win an ACC tournament and also to win a national championship, right? It's really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Winning an ACC tournament, I never played. Well, no, I didn't. That senior year, that was the only time I played in the championship game. I coached and won. It was, it was something special. I do have to say, though, that at that time, while we all wanted to win the ACC championship, that wasn't one of the really big goals. I think winning the regular season was probably bigger in that regard, and obviously getting to the Final Four and trying to win the national championship was huge. When I first, as a first year, when I first went to my first ACC tournament, I had heard so much about it and read so much about it, and it was pretty special, but it wasn't that much more intense and exciting than playing in the state tournament at Freedom Hall in Kentucky. When we played Shelby County, there were over 18,000. I mean, it was standing room only. There were over 18,000 people in that building, for that game. So the tournament was big, but I'm not sure that for me or for Jeff Lamp, people that had been in other environments kind of similar, that it certainly wasn't intimidating by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. So after you finish your time at UVA, what's next for you?
Well, I graduated, and it was on a Sunday. By Monday morning, I had received 5 job offers, and realized that I did not want to work for a living. I wanted to keep playing as long as I could, and while I was grateful for those job offers from the folks in Charlottesville, there was no way that was going to be my future. I ended up being drafted by the Indiana Pacers and played with them out in the LA Summer League. I should have known they had 13 guaranteed contracts on the roster anyway, with only 12 spots. So that just the math didn't work out there. When they let me go, I signed with Golden State as a free agent and went in and had a great preseason and a great camp. Had basically made the team, and then I sprained my ankle pretty badly. So I was laid up for a couple weeks. During that interim time, they needed to find people. They ended up signing their number 1 draft pick, Lester Connor. But at the time, I still would have had a spot. But then they signed Michael Ray Richardson. And the handwriting was on the wall. So when I came off injured reserve, I was gone. And, they encouraged me to, stay with it or whatever. But I knew that, that my playing career was done. I had an offer to go to Spain. Back then, that wasn't nearly as attractive an offer as it might be. It wasn't the norm. And Coach Holland had saved me a spot on the coaching staff. So that was my next step. And I went back and, was there for another 16 years.
How about your time in the brief time playing against NBA guys? Was it a shock? Were you like, I can play with these guys, whatever, I've seen it all?
Oh, I think both. I mean, I was confident in my ability to play. I was never going to be an all-star or anything like that. But and you got to remember, back then there were a lot fewer teams.
Right.
Right.
I wish, that there were as many teams then as there are now.
Right.
I could have maybe gotten some of that NBA money. Yeah, back then, I mean, I can remember in a preseason game, 2-on-1 fast break, Kareem and Magic coming right at me.
Right.
Is thinking, what the hell am I going to do here? Kareem threw a behind the back pass out of bounds. So hey.
Did your job. Good job, JJ.
I can remember guarding Magic Johnson in the low post, and the ball was out on the wing, and I was behind him, and he was so daggone big I couldn't see around him. People don't understand. The guy's huge. He's not just 6'8". He was like 250 or whatever. I mean,
right.
I could not see around him. I remember guarding Walter Davis up in Portland, and he made a move and he left me behind. And then all of a sudden he made a second move. He didn't need the second move. He made the second move, and I was perfectly positioned, and I blocked his shot. And I was thinking, yeah,
he outmoved himself.
Good defense there.
He's like, you're supposed to be over here.
Yeah, but it was great getting a chance to live my dream of playing in the NBA. But that just wasn't. I was married at the time. I had a great situation back at Virginia waiting for me. There was no way I was going to just kind of bounce around and wait till the next year to try to give it another shot.
Right. We talk about that all the time too. But in the old ACC, your time and then my time, there's 4 to 7 NBA guys on the court every game, right? You're talking about how competitive you're talking about Howard, Jimmy.
Yeah, but again, Doug, you got to think there's 4 to 7 guys in the NBA with what, half as many NBA teams now?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
As now. So I mean, think about that the level of play, just and guys were there as juniors and seniors.
Right.
So it is different, and I'm not going to get in an argument about which is better or which is worse. That's irrelevant. But I do think it was a special time in the ACC for sure.
So you're basically saying I would have had a shot at the NBA if I graduated in this era and not in my era.
Well, I definitely. I mean, without a doubt, if you were quicker and taller,
and shot it better and dribbled and played better defense.
Maybe not white. It's funny because JJ made me think when he got sold, he sold them wrong when he had his visit. I felt the same way because I think everybody was expecting a 6'1" black point guard named Doug Smith out of Fayetteville, Tennessee. Rick Carlisle was like, "Hey man, sorry I didn't talk to you all day, but I didn't know who you were." Havlicek going through every ethnicity. He's like, "You have to be this. No, you have to be this." I'm like, no.
Well, hey, Doug, the last time was it when you were down here, when you had the big full beard?
I had a beard, a little bit more.
Well, you definitely could have been Russian with the bald head and the beard. I mean, you could have been Igor. Hey, am I allowed? I don't know how long we're going, but am I allowed to tell the story of your visit?
Yes, please.
We were going to get to that, but if you want to tell it now, tell it now.
Well, I want to make sure because I couldn't believe I was driving the car, and Doug and Dave Odom, one of the other assistant coaches, were in the car, and we were just doing a driving tour of grounds, and we were coming down in front of the library, the Alderman Library. We were going by the black bus stop right there, and Dave Odom had said, yeah, and he points at the rotunda, and says, "Yeah, that's where we eat pregame meals." And I about wrecked. I mean, I was like, "What?" I mean, Odom was just saying it didn't matter. I mean, he was just making stuff up on the fly.
I have no idea what that building is anyway. I'm like, why would they have pregame meals there? I was like, oh, that sounds great, coach.
I mean, the other thing, I mean, you know, you didn't know what the rotunda was. You didn't know what a library was either.
No, absolutely. I'm not sure I did until about my third year as well. You had us in the study hall, so.
Yeah.
So what was the recruiting visit and or the recruiting scouting page report for Dougie Fresh when you guys were deciding?
It's like when you need a point guard and you're in desperation mode. And there's no way.
I mean, it was late, and we needed a point guard.
When you say late, I'm sorry. What late? What's late?
Like
What month are we talking
March.
about? Okay.
I was late.
March. And we needed a point guard, a backup point guard, because Crotty was on the team, right, Doug?
Yep. Crowd was going to be a junior.
So we got word that there was a kid down in Tennessee. He was, you know, and smart and all this stuff. And so I went down and watched, and you know, we brought pretty, you know, we were hoping to kind of get. I want to say, Doug, you were just on grounds briefly, and didn't we leave to play a game?
You guys were getting ready to go play in Michigan.
Yeah.
I saw you got NCAA tournament, Providence, Middle Tennessee State, and then you beat Oklahoma, and then you guys were getting ready for that. So it was the basketball aspect of my visit was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, I was like, these guys might be losers though. you guys had bigger things to do, which I get. I was also, Mark, I was stringing along everybody. So I was late, but I was like, yeah, I'll get back to you. You know, I got an offer here. I'm gonna do my visits, all that stuff. So
right.
And then UVA comes on the scene.
The offer.
Right. Exactly. You just knew UVA, Kentucky, and Kansas were coming.
I was waiting for Coach Smith, but he got Kenny Harris, so that didn't happen. No, I couldn't have worked out better. And as JJ knows, my mentor growing up, Raymond W. Fraley, I didn't have a choice in my decision when I was trying to go to Texas A&M or Arkansas State, Jonesboro. He was like, "No, Douglas." No. But it's funny. It's funny as Jeff Jones.
Think about this. If you had gone to Arkansas State, where would you be now? You wouldn't be in the Big Apple.
No, I'd have a 7,000 square foot house in the middle of nowhere in Arkansas, probably 7.
For like $100,000.
And just ecstatic about like Stu Piggy or whatever it is all day. But I remember JJ came to see me and thinking about him as a coach, and I only knew him as a coach. I followed him and all those guys as basketball players when I was young. But he came and watched my game, one of the games, whatever. And I don't know if you realize this, but he's like, you know, Doug, before he started calling me Fresh, he's like, you know, you hit that three, and you came down again, you were open for it, and you didn't shoot it again. He's like, you got to shoot that thing. And he always used to, he's such a coach. And when I got on grounds and we're doing our first practice, he's like, hey guys, who am I? It might have been my visit. And he takes the ball, somebody throws the ball out of bounds, he takes one dribble and passes it up the sideline, we had that secondary fast break. And JJ's in there scouting, kind of like he's sort of making fun of me, letting me know what's to come, I think.
Now, what was your impression on those visits of JJ?
Of JJ? I mean, it's when you're 18, somebody who's 25 seems old as shit. But you realize now that we're like kind of the same thing. He was obviously the guy in practice when I was actually paying attention, not like trying to drink Gatorade or whatever on the sideline. You know, he was definitely the player's development guy, I felt like, because when I got to school and the guys that didn't play as much their first or second year or whatever, JJ played with us. And then you realize not only is he the player's development coach, but he's a competitive motherfucker. Like, we're doing pickup games to win. And you talk about, like, you know, JJ's 6'4", and now he's a man, a grown, you know, 25-year-old, not an 18-year-old 180. And athletic, way more athletic than people think, especially people like me. But you remember those games, JJ? We'd have heated games, and I'd get pissed off. You'd get pissed off, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that was I still loved playing. You know, that was a great, and I refused. You remember DW always would play in those noontime games, and he would play, against Bruce Arena, obviously a big soccer name. He would play against Gino Auriemma. Gino was the women's assistant coach at the time. And some of the football assistant coaches. At that time, I refused. I guess I was too arrogant or cocky. There's no way I would lower myself to play with those guys. I still wanted to play with the real players. But you were on the team. Yeah, you were on the team when my pickup career came to an end.
Yep.
I was playing against Bernie Floriani and Dirk Katstra. Dennis and I were playing them and beating their ass. And I blew out my knee. Last time I ever played.
As I saw it
Wow.
happen. I think when I was there, you were still dunking too. Had to be, right?
Probably.
Yeah, you were still dunking when I was. But then I saw the knee thing happen in slow motion. That
was when Yuri Barnes walked by and said, "Listen to Coach."
That makes sense.
I never had that.
Didn't miss a day though. I remember you coming in the next day on the damn crutches on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Coach, 8 seasons as an assistant coach. What were the most valuable lessons you learned, and how much were you prepared going into that job because of your relationship with your dad and your understanding of the game while you got better and improved as a player?
My dad and I, oddly enough, never really had lots of conversations about coaching. It was more about the game, and he kind of shaped my approach to the game. But the coaching part of it, I think, came more from Coach Holland. Maybe something from Jim Laron and Craig Littlepage as assistant coaches. And then once I got into it, Dave Odom was on the staff, and Dave Odom was an unbelievable resource for and Larinaga was on the staff, and he was obviously a great coach, and but Odom was the one that I talked to, about the profession. It was just a great learning experience. And I loved it. I didn't get to recruit the first couple years. Back then there was only 2 coaches. But I listened. I sat in on all the meetings and listened to them talk about, how to recruit and the ways to go about things. And so I thought once I made that move when Larinaga went to Bowling Green and I moved up a chair, I thought with Dave Odom's mentorship and advice, I thought I knew, what to do on the recruiting trail. So it was a great experience. And, I think my whole thing is if you're around good people, you're around smart people, you're around successful people, if you pay attention, you're going to pick something up very, very positive.
And clearly you're one of the top recruiters to pull Doug Smith.
Doug Smith, that might go down as my all-time signee.
That's right. Found that gem. Rough.
So what are you thinking when Holland's about to depart and leave coaching?
Well, it was interesting because it was a surprise to all of us. He said, "Come on, let's go running one day." That fall, August, whenever it was. And we went running, and that's when he told me, and I was the first person on the staff that he told. It kind of caught us all by surprise. It left Craig Littlepage and I in a little bit of a crazy situation, because how do you recruit and not know who the head coach is going to be?
Right.
We were able to sign what I think were 2 pretty good players under any circumstances, but certainly, not knowing who the coach was going to be. Derek Johnson and Corey Stewart. Now, neither one of them, ended up playing much. Corey transferred, and Derek didn't play, and eventually left. But that was that was an interesting time, to say the least.
And then we had Cornell. Cornell was in that group, right? Because
that was the first time I signed Cornell. But he had to go to Fork Union to get his SAT score up.
Right, and then he was in that class.
Yeah,
that's right.
And then did Holland recommend you for the position?
It's complicated. Coach Holland basically thought that that I would be the person, but thought that if one or the other of Craig Littlepage or I were going to get the job, that Page may have a better chance because he had head coaching experience and being an African American. So we talked about that, and he said that's the way we're going to move forward. And so I just kind of accepted that. That didn't last very long. That wasn't the way I think a lot of people saw it, and I'm not sure that either one of us was a serious candidate for the job. But as things progressed, I know Pete Gillen was on the radar. They didn't. They never got together. I don't know if Pete. I think if I remember correctly, maybe the AD at Pete's school, wherever he was, Xavier, maybe, didn't give permission for Virginia to talk to him. I know Mike Montgomery came in on an interview when I was. It was during the Final Four, and I was maybe Denver. I'm not sure. At the Final Four, and I get a call. You need to come back immediately. And I came back, and Mike Montgomery was there, and basically he told me he gave me an assignment. And, he wanted the names of every player 6'10" or bigger if they had a 3.0 GPA in the country. So I just assumed that he had been offered the job. That wasn't the case, and he left and ended up getting a big raise at Stanford. And then Rick Barnes came in, and I think Rick Barnes was probably the guy. They offered him the job. I can still remember sitting around the office the day that Rick Barnes came in for his interview, and we were all trying to figure out what the heck it was that we were going to do with our lives. The job was offered to Rick Barnes. He accepted it. And then once he got back, Dave Gavitt, I guess, talked him out of it. I didn't know that, though. I actually left the office, went to Richmond. I didn't know what else to do, so I just did what I normally would have been doing. I went to Richmond and was at an AAU practice, sitting there watching I forget who it was, but I was watching an AAU practice, and Dick Tarrant, the coach at Richmond at the time, walked in and said, "Yeah, did you hear about Rick Barnes?" And I said, "Yeah, he took the job." He said, No. He turned it down. And I guess while I had been in the gym, the word had gotten out that after accepting it, he called back and turned it down. So I immediately left, and I drove home. And got home, and back then, you had the voice machines, the message machines. I had so many messages. I had over 30. I mean, it just went on and on. So I didn't know what the heck was going on. The next day, I spoke with Jim Copeland, the AD, and interviewed with him. A couple days later, I interviewed with him again. Didn't really know what was going on. We had our banquet, and as I walk into the banquet, I still had no idea I walk into the banquet, and he's kind of there. Doug, you'll remember in University Hall where the ticket office was in front.
Yep.
In the main
Yeah,
entrance. I was
Yep.
walking in there, and he kind of walks over and just whispers and just says, "You still interested in the job?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Congratulations, but you can't tell anybody." So
Oh,
I'm
man.
sitting there the entire banquet, about to explode. I mean, I didn't even tell my wife. And sitting there, and then, you know, when the banquet ended, we were driving home, and I said, "Well, I got the job." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "He offered me the job before the banquet, but we can't say anything until they announce it." So it was a crazy time the entire year, and certainly that last couple weeks was it ended up great for me, but you know, a lot of uncertainty and not really, you know, knowing what was going to happen for the future.
Did Coach Holland know before you, or no? Was he
No.
was Mr. Copeland was just done with him by
Coach Holland and Jim Copeland weren't on great
Right.
terms by that point.
Yep.
So
That's what I figured.
What was your immediate plan?
what's that?
What was your immediate plan after being named head coach?
I think you know, getting a staff together. You know, there was no real reason to change a whole lot. We had a very good team coming back. You know, there was no need to change the offense or change the defense. You know, it was just to kind of keep things rolling, I think. And then once we got our staff together, and that took a little bit of time. But once we got our staff together, it you know, whatever new stuff came up, it was focused on recruiting and trying to be a lot more aggressive on the recruiting trail, and doing things in that way, maybe differently than had ever been done at Virginia.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you recruited some really, really good players.
Yeah,
in your time
translation, they're trying to get a McDonald's All-American point guard, Mark. That's what they were trying to do. But
Well,
I
you
say
recruited-
we had a meeting. It had to be right after the banquet. I mean, that week, I assume, when you had us in. And I'll tell you, our side as players, I can't, again, like, you don't talk for everybody, I don't either. I mean, I think we were relieved and happy because we didn't know shit about Rick Barnes. And we had, you know, John Crotty, Matt Blunden, Dirk Katstra, Kenny Turner. As to me, they were like grown men and real leaders. They didn't need a new guy to come in and revamp the whole thing. So I think us as players, and I've said it before on Crotty's podcast, that I think we were relieved and we wanted to stay the same, at least from that team. It was a close team, our standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, JJ came in, he did the first thing. I think the first question Dirk Katstra said, he's like, "Can I ask a question?" He's like, "Sure." He's like, "Do we have to call you Coach Jones now?" And he's like, no. I'm still JJ. Don't call me Coach Jones. That changed when Junior Burroughs needed to call somebody Coach. Junior Burrow.
Yeah. Do you remember your first recruiting class?
Yeah, I mean, I think that first recruiting class was Corey Alexander, Jason Williford, Yuri Barnes, Chris Alexander, and Junior Burrow. I'm still. I take that back. That was the next year. After I got hired, I immediately went to Fork Union and re-signed Cornell Parker, who had signed with us, committed to us the year before, but went to get his SAT score up. So Cornell was my first recruit as a head coach. But my first my first recruiting class as a head coach was those guys, which was ranked I think second in the country behind the Michigan's Fab Five.
Still probably goes down as one of the best classes in Virginia history, I would say. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is, we probably I don't know how it would have shaken out, but there were a couple. We had another scholarship, and there were a couple of guys. You know, Andrew DeClerc was one that essentially we kind of backed off, but we had a really good end with, and I was afraid I didn't want to over recruit, which, I learned much later to not worry about over recruiting. That kind of stuff works its way out. But, we could have added to that, I think, but chose not to, which, may have been a mistake. I don't know.
40.
As great of a kid and family, Andrew DeClerc, I think you remember them. We played him at Florida the next year. Great kid, great. He was the most boring guy to what is it called to host him on his visit.
Yeah.
He made me go to the architecture school for like 2 hours one day. I'm like, dude, Big Red's got a party going on at Ash Tree right now. Let's go. Tell your mom and dad, go somewhere. Let's go.
Well, I also remember that some of you guys got mad. It didn't really bother me that much. It did bother Dennis Wolf. During practice, Andrew DeClerc fell asleep on the bleachers in University Hall, and some of you guys were mad. I was like, how does that affect anything?
He laid out. He laid down the bleachers. He didn't nod up. I remember that. He did. He's probably so damn bored from going to the architecture school. That's probably what happened. Nah, he's a great player, though. He's a really good dude, good family.
4 20-win seasons, which is awesome. One of the youngest coaches ever at UVA and around the country, head coaches. What were your favorite years there at UVA?
Wow. I think that team when Junior, Corey, and all them, I don't know that the year was my favorite, but that team was probably my favorite. I mean, that was kind of a culmination. Those guys were fourth year, and we'd had success to that point. We were a game short of the Final Four. We did go through some adversity with Corey breaking his foot the second time. And the little known fact is that Corey could have actually played in that game against Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
He had been practicing with us, so he was fully cleared to, physical activity, but I didn't even ask him. I didn't want to take that risk. And, if this is the first time that people have heard this, they might be pissed off, but there was no way, I don't know what I would have done if he had come to me, but there was no way that I was going to ask somebody that had broken their foot twice, to come out. I mean, he sacrificed a lot for the program with that, having broken his foot twice, but it does every once in a while cross my mind, like, could we have actually beaten Arkansas if Corey had played 12 minutes?
Right.
Because Harold was, I mean, they wore his ass down. The 40 minutes of hell, they wore him down. And Jamal did a solid job. But, to have somebody backing up the caliber of Corey, what difference could that have made? I don't know.
If
it was me, I guarantee you would have made me play. You wouldn't have asked if I wanted to play.
Well, it's different for you. You weren't going to the NBA, dude. That would have been the highlight. You would have been a god.
I get it. I didn't know Corey could have played.
Now, he was practicing every day in practice. I don't know if you remember that. But Doug, do you remember when you had appendicitis?
Of course.
They went in and they did the arthroscopic appendectomy, and you played like 2 days later.
Yep, I played Notre Dame. I missed Georgia Tech, and then Saturday or Sunday Notre Dame. 7 points, by the way, that game, JJ. Hey, I figured my appendix was out. Like, what can I hurt now? I don't have an appendix anymore.
Yeah.
So Jay Willie's his soft kids that play at Virginia now, Justin Anderson and London Prentice, great guys. They both had their appendix out, and they took like 2 weeks. So I still hold one of my bizarre Virginia basketball records.
Come back
from an appendicitis of three people pool. Yeah, man, I did not know Corey could have played. Corey never would have held that against you, though. If anything to do with it. So. You wash your hands of him there.
That 94-95 team is no one's going to argue that wasn't one of the best teams ever at UVA. But it had its challenges, right? I mean, you had to sort of, especially at a young age, had to manage so many different personalities. Was that team one of the more difficult teams to coach, managing the personalities?
Oh, no, definitely not. That was an easy team. The team my first year with Crotty and Stith and Blunden, that was a challenge because again they were older, really strong personalities. That was tougher. That 94, 95, those guys were so close, and good. I didn't have to, like a lot of the stuff off the court, the personalities and stuff, they took care of it. Yeah. I learned after the fact, after they had graduated, about a team meeting that they had, and basically Corey was talking and Jason Wilford stood up and threatened to kick his ass and told him to be quiet. And so those guys, and they're all tight. They're like brothers, but I learned about that afterwards. So any kind of beef or whatever, they squashed it, and it was all about winning basketball games. So I would say that was actually an easy win. That doesn't mean I didn't get frustrated at Junior Burrow and all his nonsense, but that's just Junior. That's who Junior is. There's nothing malicious or really bad. He's still, I don't know how old he is now, but he's just goofy. But he's lovable goofy.
Yeah.
I was going to bring it back to a year prior. We talked to Junior about this. I think it was Stith's fourth year, and that selection Sunday, you guys were in Charlotte. Like, I remember watching that as a kid and thinking, what? They forgot Virginia. What happened? I just was curious. What do you remember about that? And then you guys obviously going on to win the IIT, but like selection Sunday itself, what do you remember about that?
I just remember, being nervous going into it. We just didn't have enough wins. Ultimately, that's what it was. Were we good enough? You're damn right we were. There's no question. But we just didn't have enough wins, and it hurt. And I went through. Initially, I think I was angry, and then I just felt badly for the team. But by the time it came around, and they wanted to know about IT, I was all in, and we obviously had a young group. We had a mix. Obviously, Stith and Oliver were fourth years, but we had that freshman group, and the NIT was a great opportunity for us. And I think just like, and you can go back to when I was playing in 79, 80. With Ralph, and we had a good team, and the regular season didn't go the way we wanted. We used that NIT forum as a springboard. The team with Bryant's senior year, they did the same thing. It was an opportunity for Bryant and Anthony to go out on a positive note, but it was also an opportunity for that group of young guys, Junior and Corey and Jason and Yuri and Chris. And everybody else to kind of springboard into that next year.
Yeah. So we've had Junior on the podcast. We had Jason Williford we've spoken with a lot. And Junior and Jason Willie both talk about him getting kicked out of practice several times. Does that ring a bell?
Junior never got kicked out of practice that I can remember. Jason was the one. Jason was the one that, Junior talked all the time, but Junior didn't talk back. Jason Williford would talk back. He'd be a smart aleck. He'd do something, and and I'd just say, get out.
You talked about Jason telling Corey to shut up before he beats his ass. I've heard Jason say that about 20 times. Have we ever seen Jason scrap? Have you ever seen the follow through in Jason's shit talking?
I don't know that anybody's ever stood up to him, so I don't know.
That's a good point. Remember the practice? Something happened his first year, and he just he punted the basketball into the last row of U-Haul, and just walked off. We're like, okay, good kicker.
When Curtis Staples was first year, so whatever year that was, Jason Williford and Curtis, because I have no idea what it was about, but I booted them both. They go into the locker room in University Hall. They go back there, and Jason tells the story great. It's Kurt's crying. It's like, oh my God, are they going to call my parents? What are we going to do, Jay? And Jason was all calm. I mean, he'd done this before. And they're in there. He said, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a shower. We're going to get in the hot tub. Then we're going to go get something to eat. Then we'll apologize to Coach Jones. Everything will be fine. Just relax. So he had it planned out. He knew exactly what was going on. They were in there while the rest of the team was out there, practicing and going on. They took a hot tub and a shower and went and got something to eat. But Jason was the old hand, and he was teaching Curtis Staples the ropes. But Curtis was crying and was worried that we were going to call his parents.
Junior Burrow was a surprise guest on the Jay Willie show. We do a show with Jay Willie that airs every Monday night, and he tells the story about one of the coaches kicking him out of practice because he put his hair in little braids and says, before Jeff Jones comes out here, you better get your ass out and change your hairstyle. Do you remember that at all?
I don't. Yeah.
JJ learns something new about us about every year when we get back together with him at his house. There's always a new story.
Some of the stuff I don't want to hear.
One day we'll be grown up enough to tell him everything. Like I say, like we talk about how it's different now, and you talk about the players. Mark, I always mess with Tyrone Jerome and all those guys. They won the national championship. They come to the hotel and they go to the third floor, and they're, we're down there partying, all of us. And I'm like, Jason, if that was us, we would have thrown our luggage into like somebody, just take it, and we would be right there in the mix. And our coach JJ would be 100% for it. I know it's different now, and I know cell phones, et cetera, but you said the 95 team was easy. Like the one thing that what we all kind of made happen, but it obviously comes from the head coach, Coach Holland. You guys let us be men, right? As long as we took care of our shit. We didn't have rules. We didn't have curfews. We had go to class rule, get your grades rule, go to practice. But you guys appreciated and let us have that experience at Virginia and kind of police ourselves. And thank goodness Junior had guys like Brian Stith and myself and everybody. He was showing the way.
I do have to say this, Doug. We were talking about some of the stories that I've heard after you've graduated. Had I known those stories then, you would have had more curfews.
That makes sense. Maybe I read it wrong. I went a little over the top on it.
Now, I would not to get all philosophical, but I think in any relationship you want to be able to trust, and part of our job as coaches is obviously from a basketball standpoint, trying to help you maximize that part of yourself and academically, but also as a human being and as a man. And I think if we do everything for you, if for 4 years,
right.
I held your hand, figuratively speaking, and told you when to eat, when to sleep, when to study, when to play basketball, when to, do whatever, you'd graduate, you'd have a diploma, but I don't think that you'd have a true college education. And I definitely don't think that we would have developed you as a person. And I think people have to have, until they prove that they can't handle it, I think they've got to have some responsibility and have some freedom. and make some decisions on their own, even if sometimes they fail, and we can be there as a safety net and try to get people back up on that path. But I think it's important, and part of that is, I think, stems from the way Coach Holland treated us. We don't want it to be like prison, and we do want to develop men, that's a big part of it. And obviously, there was stuff that went on, but I'm very, very proud of who you guys have become as men, as fathers, as husbands. So I do think there is a method to the madness, and I think of you guys, and I'm very, very proud of our relationship and our association.
Appreciate it. That's it. And the bigger testament is how close we all still are. I think, like Junior and Brian, all those guys, we're family ever since then. And there's not a lot of programs around the country that have that, 20 years later.
Yeah, I think it's funny when people throw around the word or the term family.
Right.
They just use it all the time, and I think oftentimes the more you talk about it, or if you put family on the butt of your practice shorts or stuff like that, I think that cheapens it. But I do think that the relationship that you guys have, that you allow Dennis and I and Brian Ellerby and and TP and all of that group, the relationship that you guys allow us to have, I think it's something special. I don't think it's unique. I think there's probably other places that have something similar.
Sure.
But not a lot. It's certainly not the majority, and we're not throwing out the brotherhood and crap like that. There labels. Again, I think labels like that, hashtag this or hashtag that cheapens it. And I'm very appreciative of what we all still have.
Same.
Very successful first 5 years at UVA coaching. What was the difference between after that 94-95 season and your last 3 years? Although you did have a really good 96-97 season, winning 18 games as well.
I think we had some off-court incidents that affected the personnel and the team. I think it's as simple as that. We had some really some positive recruiting results that we never were able to see materialize because of the off-the-court stuff, and ultimately we just weren't good enough on the court. Our margin of error, even in that 96-97, was it 96-97 when we went to the NCAA tournament? Even that year, we had Curtis and Norman. Willie Dersh, I think, was a freshman that year. Was he a freshman that year? We just didn't have enough. We had some good pieces, but as Doug alluded to earlier, if you're gonna compete in the ACC, you better have good players, but you better have a bunch of them too.
Right.
We just our margin of error was too slim.
Yeah. Right. Because you were still landing at that time top players. Willie Derch was a McDonald's All-American. Jamal coming in was really good. Norm, Curtis Staples, still had top guys. But it seemed like some of the off-court issues, as you mentioned, with Melvin Whitaker, Courtney Alexander, and T-Dubs. Who were the other ones?
Darryl Presley. I think there was Scott Johnson. Those were fairly minor. I think the Melvin Whitaker one was pretty bad, to my recollection.
Melvin Whitaker was the toughest one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you lose a guy like Courtney Alexander, who's a top 5 player in the country. He was ridiculous, right? Whatever. I don't know him. I met him one time. But he was an absurd. So you're considering that for your roster, and that's gone. So for sure, big deal.
Were those guys when you were recruiting them? Were there questions on that stuff, and you're like, you know what, let's take a risk and see if we can manage it, or did you not? Those blindsided you completely?
Yeah, absolutely not. Melvin Whitaker was a good kid, and we
Yeah.
beat North Carolina to get him. Courtney, there was never, there was never any question from a character standpoint or anything like that with Courtney. I mean, he was he was different, but nothing like that. And I don't, those things happened, and I hope both of those guys, all of those guys, have been able to kind of get back on track and have productive lives and everything. It's unfortunate, but those were things that took place that I think didn't just impact them. It impacted our program and everyone involved with it.
Yeah. So in total, you spent about 20 years at UVA as a player and a coach.
Yep.
Right. And then you part ways and you go on to the next part of your career. What was it like moving on from Charlottesville?
Well, for a year, I didn't. I stayed. I stayed in Charlottesville, and the positive of it was that I got a chance to. My kids were younger, and I got a chance to spend more time with them. But I got to about October of that next year, and really realized how much I missed being a part of a team. It had been since sixth grade since I had been part of a team, being part of something that was bigger than any individual. And that's when I realized, I did still want to coach.
Yeah.
I did, some TV stuff during that time. I actually initially with it's Comcast Sports now. I think it might have been Home Team Sports at the same time. I had originally contracted about 24 games, that year. And then the NBA lockout took place. And all of a sudden, most of my games, I want to say it was Brad Daugherty, but, my games got taken over. So I ended up with just 4 of them. So in response, what I did, I tried to treat that year as a sabbatical. And I went and I visited Wake Forest with Dave Odom. I visited UK with Tubby Smith. I visited Xavier with I don't know. I'm blanking.
That would be whoever's after Pete, I guess, right?
Yeah, coached at Wake Forest, passed away.
Prosser.
Yeah, Skip Prosser.
Skip
I'm
Prosser.
sorry. Yes. While I was in Cincinnati, I went and I watched Bob Huggins in University of Cincinnati. I went out twice and visited Rick Majerus out in Utah. I went and saw Gary Williams. I was close with Gary and that staff, and I went and watched them practice. And it was a great learning experience. I truly value that. If any regrets that I didn't get a chance to see more programs, but it reinforced my desire to coach. It kind of gave me some new ideas and also reinforced some of my coaching philosophy. But I tried to make that the most of that year off, and then went up to Rhode Island for it wasn't even a year. It wasn't even. I think it was like 6 or 7 months. Went up there, and it was a learning experience. I can't say that everything happened the way I wanted it to up there, but I was glad for the opportunity, and then was able to come back to DC and get the job at American University, which was an opportunity to get back in coaching. But also an opportunity to be closer to Charlottesville. It wasn't the same, but closer to Charlottesville, which gave me a lot better access to be able to see my kids more frequently.
Did you ever consider taking a job or were offered jobs by any of these guys as an assistant maybe at that point, or was that no interest by your side? Or
Well, I did take the job at Rhode Island as an assistant.
oh, okay, that's right. I was thinking about with the other guy. I didn't know if you had a lot of opportunities or thought about it.
Oh, when I was going around, I wasn't really looking for a job at that point. I mean, this was during the season when they were playing games.
Yeah.
So I was offered maybe a month or so after I'd gotten fired at Virginia. I was offered the GM and head coach position with the IBL and with the Cincinnati franchise. And I thought long and hard, and basically I was going to do it. And then the Final Four was down in Tampa, and I was down there with all of my former colleagues, and just came back and turned down that position because I realized college coaching is where, I needed to be and I wanted to be.
During your year off, before you took the Rhode Island assistant position, what was your relationship with the Charlottesville community? Were they welcoming? Were you a little stressed out? Were you embarrassed at all to see people?
I think I definitely had, there was some anger at that time. Not because I got fired. That's the business that I chose. I mean, one of the things with a father as a coach is you better understand the business of coaching, and getting fired is part of it. And if you don't produce, if what have you done lately, that's a reality. So the getting fired part, I just thought that there were some that I guess kind of completely disregarded everything that had gone before. I mean, I was one of them, and it's it's one thing I don't. I might have made the same decision to let me go as was made if I was in that position. But I think some of the things went above and beyond that, and I think there was, there definitely was some resentment. I don't think I hid or anything like that, but I think I kept a pretty low profile.
I can just tell you from fan standpoint, I always considered you Virginia royalty in terms of player, coach, all that. I mean, that was like the prime time for a lot of us as kids growing up in that Ralph era, and then you as a player, and then you becoming a coach and seeing it go that far. It was actually really hard. Like, and then having you come back, and when you came back to JPJ to play us in America, I remember that was really cool. What do you remember that moment? Like you and Coach Willie, I think, came back to play us. I think it was 06, 07, 06, 07.
That sounds about right. I remember coming back. I was disappointed in how we played. We had a much better team than the way we played. We played better in the second half. I thought it was probably time to do something like that. But it's that. Yeah, I mean, it was good to be back, and I think by that time, what do they say? Time heals all wounds. I think as we get further and further from that, that's not something I dwell on or really think about.
I wonder if I would have gotten in trouble for going to that game with an American shirt on, supporting my guys.
Well,
No.
I do have to say,
I wasn't a big UVA fan then.
Not that they are going to agree to play us anytime soon, but if we ever play UVA, you're damn right you'll be wearing an ODU jersey.
As long as you fly me down, you're done.
So how did it happen so quickly that you went from assistant at Rhode Island to head coach at American?
I think it was just timing. I'd been out, but I tried to stay relevant. I'm not to sound cocky or anything. I was a pretty good choice, I think, for American University, and I was excited, to get back in and have that opportunity. DC is a great place, and as I said, it was the closest thing I could find. There were other things that I had looked at, but that was the closest thing I could find to my kids.
Right.
So the timing just worked out.
Yep.
Did you have an American connection, or was that a complete blind search and you're one of three guys or whatever?
Well, the soccer coach was at American was there, but that really was it. The only connection was there was a guy in the administration that had Maryland ties, and Gary Williams and Jimmy Patsos and Billy Hahn all helped me, through that with that connection.
Yeah, Jimmy used to come see Brian Cashman and myself in New York every now and again. They were college.
Yes. Well, Jimmy was I don't know his exact position. He was on the Maryland staff at that time, but he in order to make money to survive, he had to bartend as well. I offered him a job as an assistant coach at AU. Gary countered and he got a raise. And then later that summer, I can't remember exactly how it happened. It happened again. So I got Jimmy Patsos 2 raises in that summer. So he didn't have to bartend anymore to make ends meet.
And by the way, we're going to go forward here, but I'm thinking about, we talked about when, like, the end of your time at Virginia. You also got 2 guys head coaching jobs. Let's be honest. Brian Ellerby going to, and you don't have to do that, right? You can tell him no, I guess. And then Dennis Wolf got BU. BE was Loyola?
Loyola,
yeah. Okay. And, and then you have to do the whole new search when you have a really good thing going. And the teams, the coaches too, right? You got to find 2 new guys, and you found 2 good ones, I know. But that's something that people forget. The continuity.
Yeah, I mean that was something. I mean, number one, I mean that we definitely took a hit with that. And again, I don't mean that in a negative way for Tom or for Anthony.
Right.
It's just like you said, we had things going, and then all of a sudden, anytime you can have continuity, that's big. But there was no way that I could have or would have wanted to hold those guys back. They had done a great job for us. And the personal relationships and everything, you want your guys to do well. That's why I think, and in no way am I comparing myself to Nick Saban, so don't, but it is amazing that Nick Saban has been able to keep Alabama at the very top of college football when he's lost that many coaches, and coordinators. That's not easy, and I found that out just with Dennis and Brian. That's a big transition. Even when you get other good people now, but there is a transition period, and you're trying to get things going. Again, you don't start from scratch, but you're not starting from the same spot.
Right.
So what Nick Saban has done is just absolutely incredible to me.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, just looking in terms of Virginia history, like Pete Gillen had the same issue, right? He came off, started out hot, then he lost Bobby Gonzalez. He lost everyone too, and then things started to go south a little bit. And I think the assistant is one people don't talk about. That's a huge part of the team.
Yeah, that team just needed a couple of plays on offense. They would have been a lot better off.
Beside that.
That's Dougie's thing about Pete Gillen era. But clearly America makes a good choice, right? Your first year you win 7 games, and then from that point on, you turn it around completely, right? You go on to have a great 13-year career there.
Yeah, that first year, that was about as difficult a year as I've had in coaching. I mean, that was miserable. The culture, everything about that was, I remember our last game, because we weren't eligible to participate in the CAA postseason tournament. So our last game was at home against James Madison, and we had a bunch of people over to the house afterwards from the school, and probably 10 times people toasted to the end of the season, because that was tough. A lot of stuff kind of behind the scenes, just winning 7 games is stuff, but a lot of stuff behind the scenes, really complicated. But we were able to kind of turn the roster over real quickly. We had I think we had the number 1, number 2 biggest turnaround the next year, and then we were kind of we were off. I mean, we had a good run. I don't know if we were the best program in Conference USA, in the Patriot League in those 13 years, but we were probably the most consistent.
Yeah.
Year in and year out, we were
Yeah.
right there with the Bucknells, the Holy Crosses, and I'm proud of what we accomplished at a place that had never achieved that kind of success. It's one thing to do it in a place where they're used to being good, but at a place like American that had 9 or 10 straight losing seasons before we got there to change that place, that was pretty special.
I coach high school in New York City, and the school I coach at isn't known to be one where athletes are attracted to attend school. So my first year I got there 4 years ago, it was awful. It was painful. It was miserable, right? Guys were plotting how to get out of practice. There were 6 seniors nobody was good, by the way. And at that point, I just made some changes, cultural changes, whatever you want to call them, and just said, we're going to make these different choices. What was it that you did? What strategic plan did you have to turn around the program at American?
Again, I think, your staff is huge with that.
Yeah.
And then I think, establishing a culture of what is expected, and that we're not going to settle for anything less. I think that was the number one thing. But it wasn't just with the players. It was with the administration, the athletic administration. It was with the facility people. It was with the school administration. We had to change the way American University looked at athletics. I think we were successful. It wasn't set up for athletics to be good there. It was just, it was an activity. Yeah. But I think we did eventually kind of change the way people looked at it, and that athletics, is a valuable part, of a successful university experience, and that there's nothing wrong with winning. You don't want to cut corners. That you still want to emphasize academic achievement and other things, but there's nothing wrong with winning. And we wanted our players to understand, don't come here for the education and then, you're going to play basketball too. There's plenty of time that you can devote to being great academically and hoping to achieve greatness athletically as well.
Sure.
One thing real quick, I got to grab my charger because I'm getting ready to run out of juice here. I'm going to just plug it in, so it'll take 10 seconds.
Yeah, no problem.
T-Dubs, I was just about to transition.
We do this little segment where I share some photos and we just want to get your reaction to them in terms of what you remember. So I'll just start right now. Here we go. This is the first one is an old photo, black and white photo. When I Google for photos of your playing days, there aren't a lot. Kind of disappointing in that that whole era in terms of digital coverage is pretty weak. So we're gonna have to work on that.
Well, the digital coverage, yeah.
Yeah.
This is definitely after JJ started his weight training program, because he's jacked here.
Yeah, what do you remember about this?
Well, number one, I liked those uniforms, although the short pants thing, that's, but, Adidas All-Stars, great shoes. Those were a lot of fun to play in. Ralph, played in his Puma, or what was it?
Pony,
Puma?
wasn't it?
Pro Keds. He played in his Pro Keds. The rest of us were in Adidas. That kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore.
No, it really doesn't.
The other thing I noticed, so this was the year we went to, this was 81, because my thumb, I had torn the ligaments and dislocated my thumb, so I had to play with that bandage on for the 3/4 of the year. So that's what I noticed right there.
Yeah, the image name on this from the internet is JJ81. So pretty cool. And this next one, and I'll zoom in a little bit. We talked a bit briefly about this. This is the 1981 NCAA tournament bracket, and Virginia in the East there, with Houston. I mean, if you saw Houston and Villanova as the 8-9 seed coming for you guys, that was the early years of the Phi Slamma Jamma, and then you got the Ed Pinckney team, two teams that obviously were perennial powerhouses, and then you guys were like playing the winner of that. Do you guys remember talking about that matchup or watching that?
No, but I remember the Villanova game. That was a tough one. They had a guard that he really controlled the game. Stuart Granger, I think, was his name. New York City guard, very quick, very strong, and we never could kind of get him out of control, whether it was myself or Othell or Ricky. And he kind of controlled the game. We won a very hard-fought game.
And yeah, you talked about the other matchup with Dale Ellis. Obviously, no 3-point line then.
Yeah.
What was his game like at that time? Do you remember?
Well, Dale Ellis, obviously became a great 3-point shooter,
right,
and a perimeter player at the pro level. In the college level, he was a great shooter. There wasn't a 3-point line, so he wasn't shooting that far out. But he was a 4 or 5 man. He was an undersized post guy for Tennessee at that time. They had he and a guy named Howard Wood, maybe, was another 6'7" post guy. And Ralph had guarded Wood for most of the game, and then switched off to Dale Ellis down the stretch.
And I'm just looking at the rest of this bracket here. You've got Georgetown, James Madison down there, and James Madison winning. And you got VCU getting like 3 Virginia teams advancing. That's pretty. I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool. And just in terms of that, like, there's not a lot of teams. That is a very strong bracket for an NCAA tournament.
Well, but when you think about it, I mean, can you tell? Mine's not big enough that I can.
Okay, you can't see.
But how many teams?
Well, all the first round teams got a bye, so it's 32. The 1 through 4 got, so yes. And then you said the third place game against LSU is in here. That was the last one to ever take place. But I'm just looking at it in terms of that is a crazy bracket there with Danny Ainge, Dale Ellis. You had that Pinckney, the Hakeem, and then you got Georgetown, obviously, and you got Notre Dame. I mean, it's impressive. And then you go on to the finals. That was Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah. Jim Thomas was the guy, though. Jim Thomas was kind of an unsung guard that was really the key in their victory over North Carolina. I forget who they played. Oh, and LSU. It wasn't as much Isaiah as it was Jim Thomas. And that team was really, really, really good. Maybe the best team I've seen in person.
That was all about mid-range at that point. And then this is the poster game of the decade. Ewing, Georgetown. What do you remember about this?
Well, I remember that I had just come back.
Yep.
Right before that from Golden State, and had been in the locker room and everything, but because of me not being there, I didn't travel with them to Japan and Hawaii after this. So the game was phenomenal. I mean, as high intensity a regular season game as I could ever remember. Ewing and Ralph. Ralph clearly got the better of him, but trading punches like a heavyweight boxing match. Just Ewing with a big dunk and Ralph with just dominating things. So a big win. But while the game was going on, there was a huge snowstorm going on outside in DC, and so while the team stayed over and was flying out the next day, I had to drive back in that snowstorm, which was the dumbest thing I could have possibly done. But it was like 12 inches. It was terrible. That 2-hour drive from DC to Charlottesville, it was about 4.5 or 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Driving back that night.
Not the best road. Well, at least 29 is straight, but wow.
Yeah.
And then the next image is the Chaminade. And you said you weren't there for that one, but what do you remember about this? I mean, the game ended at like 3 a.m, right? Didn't it end?
Yeah, I didn't listen to it. It was too late in the morning. I was shocked to hear that we had lost. I understand. I get it. With all the travel and everything, guys just were worn out. But it still has to be, if not the biggest, the biggest upset. It's certainly up there.
Yeah, I mean, people talked about, the reaction in terms of guys were cramping up and their food poisoning was going around from the Japan trip, but then you don't hear that anymore. Now it's just the greatest upset ever. So.
Right.
And then this next one, there's a story, with Last Dance coming out, but there was also an interview where Michael Jordan said, "Hey, I wanted to play with Ralph back in the day," and I think he said he never got recruited. What are your thoughts on that? Do you guys remember talking about Michael Jordan coming to Charlottesville?
Well, no. Number one, I was playing, so I had no idea who Michael Jordan was when he was in high school. But I remember after Jordan went to North Carolina, saying that. I think it was in a Playboy interview, maybe.
Yeah.
And it doesn't surprise me that Virginia didn't recruit him, hadn't contacted him. When I came back from Golden State, see, this for the real Virginia fan that pays attention to this stuff a lot. This is going to be crazy. So when I came back from Golden State, one of the things they asked me to do was to start a recruiting mailing list. Up to that point, they didn't have a recruiting mailing list at all. So the fact that Virginia never contacted Michael Jordan is not a surprise. I spent, and quite honestly, and hopefully the statute of limitations is gone, but I probably broke a lot of NCAA rules not knowing, because they just said contact, everybody. And so I did everything I could trying to send out information, recruiting letters and that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure that had there been another Michael Jordan, he would have gotten stuff after that point, because we were doing everything we could. There were literally hundreds of letters going out at least once a week, if not more often. And a lot of them were just form letters, but it was stuff. But it doesn't surprise me that Virginia had never reached out to Michael Jordan.
And then this next one, Polonese era. I mean, this got Jimmy Miller, Othell in his picture. It's tough to find photos from that era, so I just wanted to include one. But what were your thoughts of that? You were an assistant at this time, right?
Yes. My thoughts about
just that era,
Polonese?
the Polony that season.
Well, number one, I'm not sure people understand how good he really was as a basketball player, and he was primed that last year before he was dismissed. He was primed to be the ACC Player of the Year, and I don't think I don't remember whether it was Horace or Harvey, one of the Grant brothers, whichever one was still at Clemson, that he wouldn't have really been a challenge. I mean, Olden was a big time basketball player, so that was big at Virginia. That was that had a big impact in the ACC. Kent Needland was an amazing story. Kent Needland, came to UVA on his own. I think he went to Edison High School. Kent Needland just was a normal student and played with some guys up at Slaughter Rec. And he was a beanpole. He could really, really jump. Maybe the worst shooter ever that I've seen. Either he or Chris Alexander. But Kenton, impressed a bunch of us, and I don't remember exactly how it happened, but basically, he was persuaded to come try out and made the team as a walk-on, and he just kept getting better and better and better. And you can kind of see in the photo there, you talked about somebody that got ripped.
Yeah.
From being a beanpole.
Yeah.
His arms and shoulders were massive. Kenton is an attorney now up in the DC area, but he actually was brought in by the Indiana Pacers, and he was kind of, I don't know if project is the right term, but they were so intrigued. I said that he might be the worst shooter I've ever seen. He might be the best all-around defender that I've ever seen in person. He could guard anybody on a basketball floor. He moved his feet. He was very smart. He understood. He was strong enough to guard big guys. And he was just lightning fast off his feet and with long arms, and he was a great shot blocker. So I'm looking at that, and Olden and Kenton in the front court at the same time. That's a pretty impressive duo right there.
Yeah. And people probably, that's now often forgotten now with the national title, and, it's always Ralph, but I remember the Polonies. And then couldn't find a good photo of you with Coach Willie, so we just see Coach Willie's ass here, which is unfortunate. But I just wanted to get your comment on all those years of you guys together, and then him, looking to go to come back to Virginia. Like, what was your conversation with him when he was debating or deciding that?
Well, number one, there was no debate. It was a matter of whether was he going to get offered the job or not. I remember I was someplace. It might have been the Final Four. I don't know. I was in a hotel room and I got a call from Tony and asking about Jason. And I answered these questions and I talked about Jason, but I said, Tony, this will be maybe the best decision if you hired Jason. The best decision for a number of reasons. And at the time there was a lot of, and Fresh is there, and he could maybe, talk about it. There were a lot of unhappy basketball alums that didn't feel any connection at all to the program after I was let go, and just it was a shame. And I thought, as I told Tony, I thought that by hiring Jason, he would immediately fix a big part of that. And so obviously Jason, I know has been a big, a big plus in terms of what he brings as an assistant coach. But that reconnection part, I think is maybe equally as big to get guys like Doug Smith and others. Because if Jason wasn't there, if Tony never made that move, those guys wouldn't be connected to the program. That was, those between myself and Tony, between 98 and whenever he was hired, that was there was a disconnect there for whatever reason.
Yeah, lost generation is what people call it.
Yeah, that's an entire podcast for me at another time. So,
And
but
then,
you hit the nail on the head.
And then here, This is an old school corny poster that John Crotty called. He's in the frame in the back, by the way. Voted most likely to succeed. Do you remember this? Taking this?
These were, there was a bunch of these, and for the UVA grads, alums, if you'd gone to Sarge's or what did other people call that place? The tavern.
The tavern,
these were all on the wall there.
Yep.
Some of them were part of a summer job program for basketball players, and then as this project went on, it became an advertising kind of thing used in recruiting and whatnot. But a lot of these posters, there's one in a library, there's one on the downtown mall in front of the theater. I can't remember what the theater is called. There was one way back that had Ralph in a race car, or Ricky Stokes and Othello in a race car. There was one that had Ralph and Coach Holland in tuxedos. So every year they came up with an idea like this. And in the right corner, there's the advertisement, I guess. Yep. This was just one of that series. And trying to come up with something new every year wasn't always easy, but that's a pretty good group right there. That team before AO broke his hand. That team, I think we were 17-1, 17-2, and number 11 in the country. And then he broke his hand, missed some games, and we were still good, but we struggled a bit down the stretch. That was the year. This was the team that had to play, and the ACC. What they did to that team is just wrong, and there should have been a formal apology. But that team had to play Thursday night on the road, and then I think it was Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon. I forget exactly. It was North Carolina, Wake Forest, and Duke, or something like that.
Yeah,
I was told
within a 4-day span, for the record.
In a 4-day span.
Yes, Thursday through Sunday.
Yeah.
And I was told, everybody will have to do this, which is garbage. Nobody else had to do that that year or subsequent years. They flat out lied to us. I guess they figured that I was a rookie coach and that, that I didn't have any recourse. But that was really wrong, and that weekend really hurt this basketball team.
Yeah.
I remember John Crotty, Ethan Saliba was giving him IV in the hotel room after the Saturday game. And I mean, that's just something that goes ignored. But again, the ACC office and the people in the ACC back then, not now, but back then, should be ashamed of what they did with this scheduling, to that basketball team. That's just wrong.
Yep, and that was a total turning point in our season.
Yeah.
And for the record, in this picture, I'm looking at it, Jeff Jones looks like the youngest guy in the picture. 29 years old?
Yeah, 20. Well, no, I'd turned 30. I was 30.
And then we had a couple of these for you. Just quick reaction on these outfits.
This is when things started going downhill.
You talk about running out of ideas.
Well, let's see. So fresh head hair. That's great. Look at how skinny TJ is back there.
Yep.
And the all denim outfit.
Big
all
red.
Denim on denim. Rest in peace, Red.
Rest in peace.
Derek Johnson and Corey Stewart.
Yep.
There you go.
AO is the leader with the suit on, so Terry Kirby.
I don't remember this poster at all.
We'll send you one, JJ. You put it up in
No thanks.
So, and your former player now, BJ Stiff, told us that Bryant definitely still has that shirt in his closet.
He's like, yo, he definitely has that.
So, yo, I'm gonna find it.
All right, and then last one of the old school poster.
There you go. This was the classic.
Yeah, this is one working on something big. You're wearing the hard hat. Jamal's holding the drill, the power drill the wrong way, but he's flexing.
He's flexing.
Yeah. Well, if you all only knew how much Harold and Jamal and Kurt had been pumping themselves up and getting sprayed with water.
I was gonna say.
I went to the tanning booth before my senior year picture, for the record.
I was gonna say. So we've had almost all these guys on the pod. One thing they always mention is, "I wish we had Nike instead of Converse." What do you remember conversations about this?
Not that much, but you know, you got to pay the bills,
Right?
You know, and Converse, and at one point we were wearing Reebok.
Right.
In fact, I think we would have been in Reebok during this era right here. I don't think this would have been Converse.
That's awesome. And then another bracket for you. This is the 1995, where Virginia in the Midwest region up here had the Nicholls State, Miami, Ohio, Kansas at Kansas City, and the Virginia, Arkansas. How well do you often think about those games at all? Or is it?
No. I mean, as I think Nicholls State, I think we were down at halftime, and then we ended up winning comfortably. Miami of Ohio had the guy with the hair, Doug. You remember him? Devin something.
I remember that. I remember the hair. I won't know the name, though.
It went to overtime. That was a tough game. I remember that one. I think that was one of the most points ever. Yeah, that was the most for Virginia history. Junior, I think that was like the third or fourth highest scoring game ever for UVA.
What was the score?
I think he had 28 in that game.
What was the score of the game he's saying?
Oh, the score of the game, I don't remember. The score was like 48-51, I think we won overtime. And then Kansas and Kansas City with Greg Ostertag. That was such a good game. And then the next.
What I remember about that tournament, JJ, I have no idea why I was not in Kansas City. Oh, I guess I was busy. But you looked the most relaxed I'd ever seen you coaching during that tournament. Do you remember that, or am I full of shit?
I have no idea.
I mean, you were having – I'd never seen it. You're at the end of the Kansas game, 12 seconds left. We're definitely going to win. But that was never your style, and you came down the bench, and the whole bench just falls out laughing because you must have made some funny joke. You and Chris Alexander, I remember. And I'd never seen that. You just looked relaxed and happy. That was awesome.
This next one, ACC legend poster they presented for Junior. I think that run that he had that year, 95 in the tournament against, obviously Randolph Childress had a similar one, but what do you remember about that?
I remember we ran the same play against Georgia Tech. How many points did he score against Georgia Tech? It was 40, 39?
So, yeah, something like that.
Whatever it was, we ran the same play, and they didn't double, they didn't do anything until the game was over. I mean, it was two or 3 minutes left, and they doubled for the first time. I remember laughing on the bench, like it's too late now. But we ran just the play with double stack, and Jay Willie came up to the top. We'd reverse it to him, and it was a two-man game, and let Jay Junior play one-on-one in the post. We just kept going back to it over and over and over and over.
Yeah, what a tournament he had, too. That still stands for point total in the tournament for ACC history. And then this next one, you recruited, rest in peace, Chris Williams. I remember he committed to you, and then there's some controversy, but he ended up having to stay. They didn't release him. But what do you remember about recruiting him?
We didn't think that we'd have a shot. I mean, we talked about him. We thought he was good. We were interested, but we were a little bit wary of recruiting because both of his parents had gone to Alabama, and he was right down there. But Mark Gottfried, they didn't. They for whatever reason, I guess they didn't think he was good enough. I don't know. But we knew that we had gotten a steal with Chris.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ricky Stokes was the lead recruiter on that one.
That's
I didn't realize that he tried to bolt and Virginia had declined. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he asked for the release, and Pete Gillen didn't sign it, and then he was forced to play 1 year or transfer instead. So he said, "Yeah, I'll stay 1 year," and then he got ACC Rookie of the Year, and obviously the rest is kind of history, but
Interesting.
definitely interesting. And then this next one, your son on this team, obviously, but kneeling for justice, obviously right now, uproar in Minneapolis, but having your son and seeing this team sort of stand up for that way, obviously controversial in a sense, but what were your thoughts on that? Did you talk to him about that?
After the fact, I guess I would say at the time, I was surprised because it was the University of Virginia.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, I do remember when he told me, after the fact, what they had done, and they were all, unified in that decision.
Yes, really cool. And like I
And
said,
I
for
think
Virginia,
they also understood the potential ramifications as well. They were fully aware of that.
yeah, pretty cool moment. And then the next one, we saw the picture of you earlier, and then your son. The question when he was deciding on obviously he's living in Charlottesville at the time. I remember reading about he had some issues with the hospital there or something, but then making a decision to come to UVA. I mean, obviously your name, Virginia royalty. Did he know what he was walking into in terms of like following your footsteps and all of that, or was he just like, I want to go to UVA?
Yeah, I think so. I think this was right at the time when I got the job here. I think if I had stayed at American, he might have ended up there. But when with the idea of walking on there and trying to play, when I came to Old Dominion, that was kind of very late in his process, and I think he just said at that point, okay, I'm just going to go to Virginia and I'm going to be a student. The opportunity to try out and walk on didn't come until later. That wasn't part of the initial decision. But he had to try out. I think maybe two different times to be a walk on. But that wasn't. It wasn't kind of a package deal. It wasn't I'm going to go to UVA and walk on.
And walk
I'm
on.
going to go to UVA, and then that opportunity arose later.
Very cool. And then this next one.
Oh, nice.
BJ and obviously Bryant Stith, Arms ODU outfit. What was it like having the whole Stith family on the squad?
It was great for reasons other than the fact that BJ and Brandon were
Great players,
really
right?
good players for us. They're just they're a great group, a great family. I care deeply about all of them, and we've been in one another's lives for a long time now. So it's great to have Bryant with us on a daily basis, and for BJ and Brandon to be as successful as they were after their first stops, were less than.
Right.
It was good, and I know that when Brandon, it was after the sit out year, and he said, "Coach, I want to thank you. My confidence is at an all-time high. I've never felt like this." And then BJ, talked about the kind of the low point when his year at Virginia and being able to to come to Old Dominion and just feel completely on the opposite part of the spectrum. I think that was
Yeah.
was really cool. And the fact that Bryant and Barbara, I guess, entrusted me with their sons, that means a lot as well.
Yeah. I mean, from fans' perspective, obviously older school fan, but having BJ and Jeff Jones, like having them back on the team, and then you guys being at ODU and then him ultimately transferring and being under you, it was really cool. I mean, it was just cool in the fact that it felt like all in one and the same, in the sense that hey, he didn't have a great time in Virginia, but at least he's still kind of at Virginia going to ODU with Jeff Jones and Bryce Stith, which is awesome. And the next question I had in terms of Brian Stith's coaching future, is this something you think? Is he going to stay in your team? Is he going to try to go become a head coach one day, or is that something you guys talk about?
Yeah, we absolutely talk about it. I hope he stays a long time with us, but I also understand and respect the fact that he wants to run his own program, and he's for a couple years now he's been ready. He is a tireless worker. He's great with people. He understands obviously the game from a technical standpoint. He understands the relationship part of the game. It's just a matter of time for him to get an opportunity, and I have no doubt that Bryant will be very, very good as a head coach when somebody gives him that opportunity.
Yeah, we're gonna all be fans of that team. And then this next one, throwback. This is Mamadi Diakite, Virginia. Obviously graduated last
We
year.
saw that. Yeah.
Wearing the Stith jersey. Just wanted to get your reaction to that. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah, I remember Bryant showed me, or I showed him. I can't remember which. Yeah, he thought that was pretty cool.
And then this is the last one. This is the reunion photo that I think is one that Dougie Fresh missed out on.
That was the first one. Yeah, that was the first one.
But
I think we've had three.
that. Yeah. And what started these, or what was the tipping point to get these reunions going?
I talk to a bunch of these guys fairly often, during the course of the year, and I want to say it was Kurt and Norm that said, Coach, we need to get everybody together, and I said, well, let's pick a date. We'll do it here. I'll pay for it, and you guys call around. And so, I mean, and they're in touch all the time. I mean, with Fresh and Junior, Corey, just all those guys.
Ted,
so
yeah.
it probably didn't take 2 weeks before we got a commitment from pretty much everybody you see here.
Yep.
We've done it a couple times. We'll do it again as soon as the coronavirus will allow us to. We got to figure out for the next one. Do we do it here, or do we try to? We've got a place in Charlottesville that we can that we can do it. But it's a great time. It's informal. Lots of stories, lots of laughs. I'm guessing lots of lies. But
lots of versions of stories. Everyone has his or her own version.
Yeah.
Especially Corey.
And that's the end of our little photo series, so appreciate you.
I like that one. Mark is back.
And Mark, back to you.
Coach, as a coach, we all have some tough losses and some down moments, and we also have some great moments. What were some of the low points in your overall coaching career?
Low points. I think one regular season game, and it might have been my last year at UVA, and in fact, I think it is, would have been, I think we lost at home to Liberty. and it was a day after we had beaten Wake Forest in Richmond. It was the 97-98 season. Coach Holland put 3 of our home games. It was a very controversial decision. Put 3 of our home games at the University of Richmond. I don't know if you've ever even heard about that, but
No.
so we beat VCU at Richmond. We lost to Richmond in overtime at Richmond, and we beat Wake Forest at Richmond. And a day or two later, we came back and we played Liberty in University Hall. And that was just a bad loss. I mean, it was just, we had no business losing that one. So that's certainly one. I think at American University, my second year, we had won the regular season tournament or the regular season title, and we lost to Holy Cross in Bender Arena, in our home arena, in a very tight game in the championship of the tournament.
Right.
That was a real tough one. I'm trying to think of others, but
I'm gonna throw one at you. No, that would have been us losing at BYU in Salt Lake City. Those guys, Crotty, Turner, their last year. But you were
Sean Bradley.
bad guy.
Sean Bradley went crazy.
And we were miserable. JJ, you know how bad we were? I don't know if you don't know this story. 2 years later, like the CBS, Toyota Player of the Game Day award came to my apartment in New York City. I won Player of the Game for Virginia. That's how bad we were that night.
All right, high moments. Is the American victory over Maryland on the list?
No.
First time you guys beat them in 80 years.
Yeah, but no. Beating Kansas in Kansas City, they were the number 1 seed. That would be up there. The first time at the first time at American, winning the tournament, and beating, was it Colgate that we beat? I think, I don't know. Winning the first Patriot League championship, first time ever for American to go to the NCAA tournament.
It's a huge
Huge.
The beating Syracuse probably 2 years ago, up in the Dome, and then probably in the same year winning in the Conference USA tournament.
Yeah.
Beating Western Kentucky.
And what about as a player? Do you have a big shot or big play that you remember? Because I remember one in Naismith that they used to play. You guys get in.
Yeah, that one we were on. They had us on the ropes, and we forced a steal, and then I had a layup. I scored, got fouled, made the free throw, and we were up. And then at the other end, I was scared to death. They had me. We had the small lineup in with Ricky and Othell, and they had me guarding. I think it was maybe a kid, Trumbo or somebody. He was 6'9", 260. He was huge. And the other guy, the other forward was just as big. And then Ralph was guarding Greg Kite or somebody like that. And shot went up, they missed, and they called me for pushing this 260-pound kid. I mean, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. I was in the best condition of my entire life, and I was much stronger, but I only weighed 185 then. So, I mean, I'm giving up like 80 pounds to this guy, and they call me for pushing him on a rebound. It's crazy. but then he went up there and he bricked the free throw. So
good foul.
Yeah.
Good foul.
Yeah. Last question I have before we send it over to Dougie Fresh for his series or for his big question. You guys, shoot, does we have to edit this one? I had it in my head, and now I lost it. It's a good question too. Shoot. Damn it! I started going over. Oh, apologies. All right. So I've referenced the Jay Willie show several times during this podcast. One of the questions I'm going to ask him on the next Jay Willie show is his recruitment process. Do you remember recruiting him?
Yes, but Jay Willie his thing was done when he was a freshman. Jay Willie had nothing to say about his recruitment. We recruited his mom and dad from the time he was a freshman. That thing was done. It was done. I mean, so, I think one time his senior year maybe after he committed to us, or I don't remember. I'm probably not after he committed to us, but in his senior year before he signed, Boston College called. And I can remember, hearing stuff, and I got pissed off when I called his parents. I said, "No, we're not going to have any of this. This isn't happening." And so all of a sudden, Boston College was out. So,
who made? I have a feeling Mrs. Williford made the real call.
Well, yeah, but there were lots of times where Big Ford and I just kind of hung out, and it was understood.
Right.
Great to know.
Jay likes to talk that big game, Mark. We know the real.
We're going to find out during the Jay Willie show what he has to say about it. So I'm going to remind him if he gets online.
Well, ask him if he took any other visits. The answer is no. He didn't take any visits.
I like that story. Dougie Fresh, you're up.
All right, this is my segment, JJ. It's not as long, and it's a little different criteria for you. We do our Mount Rushmore of Virginia basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So I did mine. Mine was Crott, Corey, Ralph, obviously, Be Nice, and Dawn Staley. But you're gonna have two. So your Mount Rushmore of when you played, or before, right, up until your fourth year. So you can go history to your time, and then when you coached at Virginia, who would you put on the elite?
Oh, when I coach, so like I'm not putting any of Tony's or Pete Gillen or Dave Lato's players on there.
No, you can, but you can do an appendix if you'd like after that. I'd rather know your guys.
Okay. I to be honest with you, I don't think there's none of Pete or Dave's players would be on there anyway. I mean, there's some really good ones, obviously, Sean
Right.
Singletary, but okay. So my time and before, you got to start with Ralph.
Yep.
You got to have Barry Parkhill. You got to have Wally Walker. You got to have Jeff Lamb. That's 4, right?
That's 4. Yes, sir.
Gosh, that 5th one would be tough with just that era there. Well, just for historical purposes, Buzzy Wilkinson, I guess.
Yep.
That makes
be
sense.
the 5th. That makes sense. Strong. So four decisive guys, and then him.
Well, no, I just didn't think about Buzzy, but he would be decisive too.
Right. I get it. And so I guess guys that you coached.
Well, I mean, June and I think Junior Burrow might be perhaps the most underrated player by Virginia people ever to play at UVA. I'm not sure people understand how good Junior Burrow was.
He was almost taken for granted a little bit because he did it for so long and so well, you know.
But I think a guy like Mike Scott, who's pretty daggone good, but what the teams that Junior played on accomplished versus Mike Scott, I mean, it's really not even comparable. Elton Brown, none of those guys. So, I mean, I think Junior's not too far off of that Barry Parkhill, Wally Walker group.
Yeah.
He's made a few.
Okay. So who did I say? I said Junior Burrow, Bryant Stith, John Crotty. Corey, Curtis, and Norm. I know that's 6, but I don't know how between Curtis and Norm you.
Corey, Curtis, and yeah.
No, I think Curtis had a bigger career than Norm, but the 2 years, 3 years that Norm played a lot, he was really
dominant,
really prolific. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
Who am I missing in that, Doug?
Harold Dean.
Maybe Dean.
Yeah.
Yep. Hold on. Maybe Doug Smith. Sorry, tell him, say Doug Smith. Number 11.
Yeah, Dean might need to be on there. I mean,
he was so tough. And then, what about your overall when you're thinking about across all of the Virginia history?
What do you say before that? Ralph Sampson, Bryant Stith, Jeff Lamp, what about some of the current guys?
Yeah, get into some of those guys if you've been able to watch. To the door.
I can tell you, Malcolm's on a lot of our lists over here.
Oh, okay. No, Malcolm would probably be there. Who wouldn't be in? Well, no. This is. I don't want to say that. This part's going out, so I don't want to say. I don't want to be negative.
Well, you can't tell us. You can't do that stuff. We don't have to put it on the air, but you can't do that.
All right, so you definitely can't. Don't put this part on the
air. I can tell. I know exactly what it's going to be. Go ahead.
Who did I say? Lamp, Stith, Ralph, Malcolm.
No more.
See, I think that the last one's hard, and I think my age bias, Wally Walker, Barry Parkhill. I don't know.
Yeah.
See, I think it's also you're talking about different eras and how long people are in school.
Right.
It's so hard to apply a formula.
The guys that have won a national championship, because I really, really value the winning part as opposed to stats.
Yeah.
Guys now that aren't there for 4 years, I think that's harder to measure. DeAndre Hunter, I mean, who had a better year than he did, but
right.
As a career, that's hard to talk about people that were there for 4 years and somebody that was there for one or two.
Yeah, most of the older fans or players or coaches tend to go with the 4-year, broad career type thing. I think, and more of the newbies, they go with the talent, or however you want to look at it.
I mean, Ralph to me is a no-brainer. I think Bryant is the all-time leading scorer and, played on really, really good teams. Lamp was a first-team All-American and had been the all-time leading scorer, was a first-round draft pick. So, I mean, I think those guys are locks.
Right.
I don't know. That's one of the things that it amazes me, on social media, people get pissed off, and, and it's an opinion, and it's,
exactly.
There is a right or a wrong answer.
No, there's not. That's why I try to formulate it. It's 100% your form. How about your favorite guys to coach? Let's try this again and see if I get a chance.
How do we get Doug on here? It's a question.
No, seriously. Like I think about Chris Alexander. You mentioned him, and where he was as a first year, and then watching him dominate on defense by his last year. And if he would have been him, my fourth year, if he would have been him, his fourth or fifth year, whatever it was, I mean, giving TJ help down there, would have been incredible.
Yeah. I love Chris Alexander, but yeah, I mean, if you're saying the favorite guys to coach.
Yeah, I just interjected that for no reason.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it.
I mean, Stith and Burrows definitely go on there.
Yep. And by the way, Bryant is the guy that you probably yelled at the least, and Junior's definitely the guy you yelled at the most.
Get both in there.
Junior was easy because I could yell at Junior and it wouldn't bother Junior, and I could get Yuri motivated.
Right.
I mean, that was the thing. I mean, it was calculated so often. I could curse Junior out, and it's just like water off his back. But I would scare Yuri so much, but it wasn't personal. It wasn't whatever. And Yuri would play better. I mean, I know this is a really, really weird one, and apparently you guys talk about this a lot. He was really complicated. Our relation was complex.
Yep.
But, I mean, Cornell Parker definitely has to go on that,
Sure.
I know, and you guys will talk about it and, like, wonder if he has pictures of me or something.
That's the biggest. That goes under one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah.
Cornell, his defense though, man,
Yeah.
he could pick somebody up full court. He was incredible. And then
I think he was the best catch-up defender I've ever played with.
Yeah.
Meaning he could get beat, but he was never out of the play. He could always
Right.
catch up.
crazy. I mean, what was his wingspan? That had to be ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, he's about 6'8" and probably has a 7-foot wingspan.
Yeah, 7-foot wingspan.
He's fast. He's so fast.
He is fast.
He's a very underrated player.
Andre Ingram at American would definitely be in that group. Can I go Andre Ingram?
Yeah, of course. I remember the name.
Trey Freeman at Old Dominion.
Trey was good, right? Really good guard. Am I making that up?
Yeah.
He had a big senior season. Did he have a big fourth year? Is that right?
Yeah. He transferred to when I came here. He transferred from Campbell and had 2 great years. Okay, UVA. I got to come over to UVA. I'm going to say Ted Jeffries and Doug Smith round out my 5.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yes.
He's gonna ask another version to get himself on one. So.
Oh, if I get on the same page as Ted Jeffries, I'm happy. Trust me. I mean, we had to be a fun team, JJ. We were some funny dudes. A lot of personalities.
But I mean, you two guys were great, but Havlicek and Red, that
Right.
was just
You can't make it up.
High comedy. I was gonna ask. That left me one more question. How close were we to getting Joe Smith? People talk about this, and on the Jay Willie show, I think we talked about it. But was that really a thing? How close were we For the Virginia fans, the old school Virginia fans are like on the edge of their seat right now. Like, what?
Yes, I think that was a very realistic. Something happened, and I'm not going to say what happened. That cost us, but we've forgiven the person that did it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, once again, we really appreciate your time. We took a lot of it. So, but yeah, it's such an honor to talk to you. Virginia royalty, as we've said so many times, but
appreciate it, JJ. That was fun, man.
That was awesome.
All right.
It really was. Every time I get to talk to somebody, I'm so much more educated about UVA basketball. T. Dubs is a complete historian and was forced into liking UVA. He didn't have a choice. Right? Otherwise, he was going to get beat.
Yeah.
Dougie played there. So I only know the last, what I remember from watching games on TV, college basketball, because I loved it, which wasn't often in New York City. And then my child being there. So prior to that, it's just such a great history lesson for me. I love it. So thank you.
My pleasure. I've enjoyed it. Now, you've got another son down at Blue Ridge, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
What year is he in school?
He'll be a senior this coming year.
This coming year.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And
be careful. JJ likes all his guys to be at Old Dominion, so he got Corey's son played baseball there. He's got my little brother on his staff.
That's awesome.
Right, all his family. JJ likes them all in the Norfolk.
AO's son, AJ.
AO's son transferred in. That's right. I forgot that.
Kieran.
Who was the toughest guard you played against in college? I mean, you played. I love Jimmy Black. Those guys when I was growing up. Whatever. Isaiah.
Frank Johnson at Wake Forest.
Frank Johnson at Wake. Strong guy.
Yeah, but fast. I mean, lightning fast.
Yeah.
He played. He could go from full speed to a stop for a mid-range jump shot like that.
Right.
He played at Phoenix and Washington. He was great. Great.
Interesting.
Hardest guys to play against. Yeah.
Corey had a little bit of that in him.
Mm-hmm.
Coach, thanks
Corey
again.
wasn't as fast. All right. My
For
pleasure.
T-Dubs out in Cali, for Dougie Fresh across the Hudson in Jersey City, I'm Mark Jerome in New York City. Don't forget, subscribe to us on YouTube. Like us. Follow us on Apple. Follow us on Spotify. We are giving you locker room access with Jeff Jones. Everyone take care.
JJ, I assume you're not going to